How's everybody doing? Please make sure to tell me where you guys are tuning in from in the comments. You know, what city, what county, what state, what dominion you are based in, where you're watching from, so I can shout you guys out. And again, I don't know what topic we're going to begin with. It's a toss-up because both the Yemen thing and Israel's defense are both good topics. But we've got people tuning in from New Zealand, from Honduras, from Berlin, from Denmark, from Mexico, from Cardiff, from Australia, from Seattle, from Kingston in New York. We've got Mexico. We've also got the UK, Florida. Someone says they're tuning in from the ICJ. We've got Spain, Paraguay, Chicago, Massachusetts, Silicon Valley in California. We've got the Netherlands, Budapest, Philadelphia, Bahamas, Virginia, Florida, Australia, and many, many more. Lebanon, Beirut, etc. So shout out to all you guys. And before I begin, I'll remind you again that the YouTube channel is demonetized. So that was my, that was the main source of income of money coming in, and they took it away. And the other problem is that they didn't just demonetize the videos, is that they deleted some of them, right? So a lot of the coverage from this war specifically, they just deleted it. So I can't live stream on YouTube. So what I'm doing is I'm going on YouTube and I'm telling people to come over to Rumble beforehand, okay? And some of you might have come over, but remember to make an account and subscribe, because we kind of stagnated at the number of subscribers. It's funny, it's gone up on YouTube. We're almost at 200,000, but we need to obviously, we need to step it up on Rumble. So if you haven't made an account, please make one on Rumble. It's completely free, and make sure you subscribe so we have a backup. And if you can spare a few bucks, you got loose change, please make sure to send some on PayPal or Patreon or on Rumble itself. So with that said, let's begin. I think I'll start with the ICJ. Okay, I think I'll start with the ICJ and then we'll go to Yemen. So give me a second over here. Did any of you watch this? Tell me in the comments in the live chat if you actually watched this or part of it. We've got people tuning in from, someone said, from a Yemenis tunnel. Gabby says, love your kufiya. Thank you very much. And someone is tuning in from Obama's mansion. We've got, well, you're safe from drone strikes there. So that's good. You're safe. Jay Galtz, thank you for the super chat. They said, F YouTube. I agree. Gabby says, I watched the first 2 clowns. I thought I misread for a second and you meant the first 2 hours, but no, you mean the first 2 clowns, the lawyers. Yeah. Red Dream says, I watched the whole thing. Andrea says, yes, I watched it. So Shelly says, I couldn't watch because I started barfing. Well, you're not the only ones. Anyway, let me dive right into it. Okay. So give me a second. You can see that. Yeah. Okay. So today at the International Court of Justice at The Hague, the Israelis, it was their turn to respond to, South Africa, the applicant's case of genocide in Gaza. Now, immediately when I woke up and I began listening, I was like, why did I wake up? I know what they're going to say. And I sat through it, but, just instant regret. Instant regret. It was so horrendous and predictable. And they didn't answer anything that South Africa brought forward. South Africa are coming with a case that is rock solid, bulletproof. If you didn't see my summary from yesterday, please go watch it. So, this is a bulletproof case that South Africa brought. And instead of answering what they're saying, they go to Hamas this and Hamas that. One of the lawyers, this guy, he even said that, Hamas are not a party to the proceedings, right? So Hamas are neither the applicant, they have no role. The ICJ deals with states, right? It handles disputes between states. It's the highest judicial body in the UN system. So he says Hamas have nothing to do with the proceedings, and yet he goes on and on about Hamas. Anyway, let me just show you some of the notes that I wrote down in some of the videos. I mean, basically they started out by saying that, South Africa's allegations, they're not allegations, they're proven, are blood libel, right? This is a common term that Israelis and Zionists use at any time you present them with valid, proven, documented criticism of Israel. Say, it's blood libel, you hate Jews. Of course, it's the standard response. And they said that it's Israel that's the victim. Israel is the victim, right? Which is interesting, because they didn't just say Israel is the victim here. They said Israel is a victim of genocide. So they said Hamas are the ones that are trying to, commit genocide against Jews. Okay, let me point you to Margaret's point, to Margaret Kimberley from Black Agenda Report. She said that if Israel says Hamas committed genocide on October 7th, they could have made the case to the ICJ. Right? Now that they're called to account for their crimes, they make this bogus claim. Yeah, I mean, again, the ICJ handles disputes between states. Hamas are not a state, of course, but nevertheless, they could have gone to the to the ICC, for example, right? And Hamas have welcomed, the ICC decision to establish jurisdiction in the occupied Palestinian territories, right? They said, please, we would love nothing more than for you to come to investigate us and the Israelis. Please come. That shows you that they have nothing to hide, the Palestinians. The Israelis, they have everything to hide. So, they started saying other things like, Israel does not harm civilians. There's no intent to harm civilians. There's no genocidal intent. They said that the statements, the quotes that South Africa provided are misleading. And I love this because I knew this was going to happen. What they did is they mentioned one of them, the thing that Netanyahu said. You remember what Netanyahu said? He said that the Palestinians, he referred to them as Amalek, okay, this is mentioned in the Bible. And, it's, as usual, the Israelis love to cherry pick parts that they like from the Bible and, ignore those that don't suit them. And so what does this passage say? It says, now go to Amalek and kill all the women and all the children and all the animals and leave nothing alive. I don't see how that's misleading or how you could misinterpret that. But let's say, for argument's sake, once again, we'll play devil's advocate, literally the devil's advocate. Let's put Netanyahu's quote aside. It's not just Netanyahu. It's the president. It's the minister of defense. It's the minister of national security. It's all these foot soldiers. It's the entire sphere of Israeli society. And not, again, these are not just random politicians. These are the ones that make the decisions. The defense minister, the president, the Netanyahu, the prime minister. So the defense minister, Gallant, you remember what he said? He called Palestinians human animals. So if Netanyahu, the South Africans misunderstood what he meant with Amalek, why don't the Israelis address the defense minister's, statement when he called Palestinians human animals and explain to us and to the world how that is not genocidal? Please explain that to us. Of course, they went nowhere near this, right? In a sane and a logical, in a serious world, the South Africans would say, look, here are the quotes from the Israelis, ABC, and then the Israelis would go and respond, ABC, and so on. No, they didn't address any of these things. They just deflect, they change the subject, they talk about this and that, and so, this and that, and so the entire hearing was about Hamas, right, about Hamas. Look, I don't know why the Israelis bothered signing the Genocide Convention if they don't understand it. The whole point of the Genocide Convention is that there is no excuse for genocide. You cannot go up to the court and say, well, they did this to me, and so therefore I committed genocide. No, you can't. You can sit there for, till the end of time and talk about Hamas. It's not going to justify genocide. So instead of, providing rebuttals to the accusation of genocide and the proof, there are no rebuttals, they deflected and started saying, well, the military action in Gaza is because of Hamas. Yeah, okay, so that doesn't change the fact it's genocide. And it's not because of Hamas, because as we all know, this didn't begin on October 7th. Hamas were created because of Israel. It's not the other way around. So, they were saying things like South Africa is... I swear to God, I predicted this yesterday. You remember when I was live and I told you that tomorrow the Israelis are going to come in and they're going to say, like, you're anti-Semitic and that South Africa are a proxy. right? An Iranian or a Hamas proxy. I swear to God, they actually said this. Look.
If there are any provisional measures that should appropriately be indicated here, they are indeed with respect to South Africa. It is a matter of public record that South Africa enjoys close relations with Hamas, despite its formal recognition as a terrorist organization by numerous states across the world. These relations have continued unabated even after the October 7th atrocities. South Africa has long hosted and celebrated its ties with Hamas figures, including a senior Hamas delegation that, incredibly, visited the country for a, quote, solidarity gathering just weeks after the massacre. In justifying instituting proceedings, South Africa makes much of its obligations under the Genocide Convention. It seems fitting, then, that it be instructed to comply with those obligations itself, to end its own language of delegitimization of Israel's existence, end its support for Hamas, and use its influence with this organization so that Hamas permanently ends its campaign of genocidal terror.
You know, what's funny is that they say that he said Hamas are waging a campaign of genocidal terror. And just today, I saw a photograph of Israeli soldiers in Gaza, okay, and they were at a cemetery, okay. Here, let me show you the photograph. Just a second. Here it is. See that? Those are Jewish graves in Gaza. They're from World War I soldiers, okay? You can see here, it says artillery, first company, May 1917, age 23. Okay? So if Hamas and Arabs have a problem with Jews, the cemetery would be desecrated, right? These graves would be desecrated, like you see European anti-Semites doing. In Europe, they put swastikas, you know, racists desecrate Jewish graves. You don't see this in Gaza. You don't see this in the Arab world because they respect the dead and they have no problem with Jews. The irony is that it's the Israelis that are coming here with their soldiers and desecrating these graves by making an association between Zionism and Judaism. Remember, this person was buried in 1917. They have nothing to. There was no Israel back then, and so not only that, but they're bulldozing graves, right, in Gaza. I don't want to go too much into detail with that, but I just thought, you know, I'd show you this since I just saw the photo an hour ago. So going further into their defense, the Israelis were saying, well, you know, Hamas are the ones that destroyed all these civilian structures like schools and hospitals. They booby-trapped them. Okay, once again, let's do a bit of math here and common sense, right, and critical thinking. 70% of homes in Gaza, the overwhelming majority, have been damaged or destroyed. Are you seriously telling me that Hamas booby-trapped every single one of them? I mean, this is ridiculous. Even the best army on the planet does not have the manpower and the logistical, resources to carry out such a feat. This is impossible. These homes were bombed. They were destroyed by the Israelis, right? Hamas simply do not have the firepower to do that, even if they wanted to, which is illogical, right? It just makes no sense. So, you know, these are fairy tale arguments. They make no sense whatsoever. And they said the Israelis said that they never fired on hospitals. Okay, I mean, I don't even know what to say because it's so ridiculous. It's so dumb. How many hospitals have they besieged? Have they fired out with tank shells, destroyed, like literally completely disabled, right? The majority of hospitals in Gaza do not work. They don't work. They're gone. The Indonesian hospital is a wreck. And then they said that, that Israel is trying to mitigate harm to civilians by warning them in advance, right? Which is, I love this. And I had a feeling they would talk about this yesterday. I posted about it on Twitter. And actually, they mentioned both of the points that I put in the tweet, right? So the Israelis ended up saying that, they don't cause harm to civilians. even though they're literally slaughtering civilians. And the other point they made is that that I knew they would talk about is the water, right? So they were saying things like, hey, we give the Palestinians in Gaza water. We provide them with electricity. Like, you know, they're doing them a favor, right? Look how good the Israelis are. Look how noble and benevolent and humanitarian the Israelis are. They give water to the people they're killing. That water belongs to Palestinians. It doesn't belong to Israel. Israel there's even a documentary, I think it was on Al Jazeera, I don't remember, but Hamas caught the Israelis stealing even more water with underground pipes, and then they disabled these pipes and turned them into rockets and fired them back at the Israelis. So we know also that Israel steals water from Syria, right? Like, a lot of Israeli drinking water comes from the Syrian Golan Heights. So this is nothing out of the ordinary for Israelis to steal water. The whole country is stolen. So you know, when you give someone's resources back to them, you are a thief. You're not a humanitarian. You're a thief. So this is a ridiculous argument. And this thing with the leaflets, I mean, you know, what does that mean? The Palestinians are supposed to say thank you for warning me before you blew me up. I mean, this is preposterous, truly preposterous. And they said that Hamas are stealing aid for the fighters. Okay, this is again ridiculous, but let's say that's true. And you're still committing genocide. What does this have to do with aid? There is no aid coming in. Okay, let us assume, for argument's sake, that every single day in all of history, okay, like from the beginning of time until the 6th of October, 2023, every single day since the dawn of time, Hamas were stealing aid. Why does Gaza need aid? Why does Gaza need aid? Number two, did you not cut all food, water, electricity, and fuel to Gaza on October 7th? Yes, you did. This is genocide. You are starving 2 million people. There are no 2 million members of Hamas inside of Gaza. You know, this does not need explaining. I mean, when you are cutting off water to everyone in Gaza, you are killing everyone in Gaza. Remember, what the UN are warning now is that more people are going to die in Gaza because of disease and malnutrition than from the bombs. Can you imagine? Because when you have a fever, when you have an infection, you know, your body cannot fight the infection if you don't have water. It's very difficult for doctors and surgeons to do their jobs when they don't have water. You know, water is essential for life. It's essential for hygiene, for sanitation, for a million things, right? As is fuel, because fuel provides electricity and other services. And you know, when you don't have fuel, the whole country goes, I mean, it goes to bits, right? So this idea that, you know, Hamas was stealing the aid is irrelevant. The trucks are not coming in. Remember that before the 7th of October, you had 500 trucks of aid coming into Gaza every single day to sustain. And even then it wasn't enough, because the Israelis were you know, they have Gaza under siege since 2007 with the Egyptians. So the amount now that's coming into Gaza, and now, I mean, during this 1 week of ceasefire, remember there was just 1 week of ceasefire where they exchanged hostages. Only during that week was aid allowed in, and the Israelis, they violated the agreement. They didn't allow the correct number of trucks to come in, and it was way below what you need to sustain Gaza in peacetime, so-called peacetime, before October 7th. Never mind during an assault like this. So this is a garbage argument from the Israelis, completely irrelevant. You know, if they can't even prove that aid is coming in, you know, they're just biggest liars on the planet. It's really hilarious listening to them. And it was 3.5 hours of this crap. So let me show you some clips here. This is from one of the clowns.
And the incessant attacks against its civilians since. Indeed, a very wide range of states has acknowledged the right of self-defense here, ranging from the UK to the US, France, Germany, Italy, Canada, Japan, Ghana and Guatemala, and others. Israel bears the responsibility.
You know what he just did now? He just made them all complicit in genocide. He basically just came to the court where he's being, you know, he's trying to defend Israeli genocide and saying, hey, look at all these friends that said we're allowed to do this. Will you please take them? Will you please take us all down together? Jesus. They even came with this quote from from Ursula, right, von der Leyen bitch, and this is what she said on the 19th of October. She said there was no limit to the blood that Hamas terrorists wanted to spill. They went home by home. They burned people alive. They mutilated children and even babies. Why? Because they were Jews. That's rich coming from a German. And she used to be the defense minister. Jesus, talk about irony. Does she know what her predecessor did? Because they were living in the state of Israel. And she goes on to say that Hamas' explicit goal is to eradicate Jewish life. No, it isn't. These terrorists, supported by their friends in Tehran, will never stop. What do you mean, Tehran? I thought that Iran is Shia and they don't like Sunni Muslims like Hamas. What are you talking about? And so Israel has the right to defend itself in line with humanitarian law. So now they've also, basically, she shot herself in the foot. And the Israelis have made sure that this is, entered into the record, that she basically, helped greenlight what they're doing. Remember that if the ICJ, as it should, if they do rule in South Africa's favor, I say if because it's a politicized court, it's not objective. They would have to then charge, the Biden administration inside the U.S. Under the Genocide Implementation Act, right? Because every country, when you sign a convention, for example, the Genocide Convention, you have to then translate it into your country's law. If you have the European Convention of Human Rights, in the UK, it's the Human Rights Act. That's just the implementation of it in British common law. And so the implementation of the Genocide Convention in the US would then make the Biden administration culpable, right, and complicit in this genocide because they're the primary supplier of weapons. Without the US, there would be no genocide in Gaza. It would be very difficult to actually carry this out, right? I'm sure the Israelis would be creative and find other ways, but you understand my point. And so, all these countries that he's listing, I'm pretty sure they were cringing when they heard this crap. But again, they don't really have shame. So, if these institutions weren't rigged and infiltrated and undermined by these same countries like Israel, like the United States, they would actually function and they would work. But unfortunately, that's not what the world is and how things are. And so another thing is that, they were showing photographs of I think it was the police in Gaza, and they were saying that they're Hamas. But anyway, this is besides the point. They were also coming in and saying things like, "Someone shuffled my papers." I mean, just look at this clip for a second, will you?
This is particularly difficult in such an egregious matter as an allegation of genocide. Were understood by the, right, I've lost a page. This is particularly difficult in such an egregious matter as an allegation of genocide.
Before that, he said that I think it was cut off from the clip, excuse me, but I remember he said that someone shuffled my papers. It's so typical of Israelis to just something so trivial and just blame someone else. I bet it was Hamas that shuffled his papers. They probably infiltrated the court and, they pulled a sneaky on him. It's always Hamas. Everything is Hamas, right? So, another thing is that they were saying that, the tunnels also caused structures to collapse, which is ridiculous. If that were true, why were there no buildings just randomly collapsing before October 7th? Please explain that one to me. And the funny thing about that is that they talk about building and structures is that Israel forbids concrete from entering Gaza, right? So again, every single item that goes in is controlled by the Israelis, right? So there's not enough of the things that come in that are allowed in. And then there are items that are banned like concrete because they claim that it's a dual-use item. This is, again, sick, evil policy. It's like what the US does to Syria. Like, oh, you can't have, I think it was toothpaste or toothbrushes because it's dual use. Yeah, okay. So, you know, the fact, if buildings really are weakened or structures are weak in Gaza, it's because of Israel, because Israel does not allow concrete to be imported. Can you just picture how insane that is? And this is not now. This has always been like that since the beginning of the siege. So, you know, the whole thing was that we are the victims. They hate us because we're Jews. You know, just all kinds of obscene things, and saying that South Africa are anti-Semites. I mean, you know, it was so predictable. And I want to show you also, I want to show you the reaction from the South African lawyers. But before I do that, let me just play a random part, and you can listen to how atrocious this stuff was. Okay, I'm just going to pick a random part.
The hostilities and suffering would end. Madam President, members of the court, there are many distortions in the applicant's submission to the court, but as shall be demonstrated by counsel, there is one that overshadows them all. In the applicant's telling, it is almost as if there is no intensive armed conflict taking place between two parties at all. No grave threat to Israel and its citizens. Only an Israeli assault on Gaza.
Once again, that's not an excuse. He's saying there's a conflict. Yeah, okay, there's a conflict. You keep saying it's between you and Hamas, but the people you're killing are mostly not Hamas. So you can say what you want. The result, the fact, the truth is that you have killed people that are not Hamas, and the majority of them are not Hamas. They're women and children. So you can call it what you want, but what's happening is something else. And then, you know, they say things like as if there's no threat to Israel. Once again, there is no excuse for genocide. You can say whatever you want. You could even say, as they have, that, oh, Hamas are trying to commit genocide against Jews. That's still not an excuse to commit genocide. It's an absolute. I don't know if I'm explaining this clearly enough. I think you guys get it. The Israelis certainly don't.
The court is told of widespread damage to buildings, but it is not told, for example, how many thousands of those buildings were destroyed because they were booby-trapped by Hamas. How many became legitimate targets because of the strategy of using civilian objects and protected sites for military purposes.
I love this one, because if you ever go to Israel, and you shouldn't, because you shouldn't give them a cent of your money or any legitimacy, but outside of synagogues, outside of theaters, hospitals, schools, they literally have plaques in English and Hebrew where they proudly say that they used to hide weapons in these buildings when, in the days of the Haganah. So the Haganah is a terrorist organization that became the Israeli Defense Forces, the Israeli army. Right? It's not linked to it or some members. No, it's literally, they just changed the name and they brought all the other terrorist groups and put them into one. Okay? So they proudly say that they used to do these things, right? And then they call Hamas terrorists. Hamas are guerrilla fighters. This means that they are part of the civilian population. They're not using human shields. They're just humans. If someone comes to your house and tries to kill you, and you have a gun at home and you use your gun to defend yourself, that doesn't mean you're a soldier or that you're part of a group. You're a guerrilla fighter. When people are under occupation, they're invaded by a foreign country, by a foreign power, by a foreign entity. They form guerrilla groups. They form resistance groups, and then they fight back. This is what Hamas is. Hamas also happened to be a political party, so they have legitimacy in both ways. They have legitimacy as a militia, as a guerrilla fighting organization, as a resistance group, and as a political party in Palestine. So I don't know, like, what does he expect Hamas to do? To go out into the Mediterranean Sea and you know, build a base on top of an oil rig and say, hello, we are located here? They can't even do that because they're under Israeli blockade, right? So yeah, obviously they are among the civilians. Who the fuck else is supposed to be in Hamas? Someone from Botswana or China? The occupation is against Palestinians, so Palestinians are going to resist. This is a no-brainer. There's nothing special or you know, incriminating about this. It's the same thing they do with the tunnels. Like, they'll go and film, you know, some tunnel that they found, like as if this is proof of something evil. Do the Israelis not have tunnels? Do the Americans, the British, do they not build giant fucking bunkers and systems underground on their own soil? Guess what? So do Palestinians. They are also entitled to have their own, resistance, to have armed resistance, and to have structures to support their resistance. There's nothing weird or evil or shady about this. It's the most normal fucking thing in the world, especially if you're bombed by people like the Israelis who do not give a crap. I mean, the Israeli hostages, 60 of them were killed by their own government. That's how severe the bombardment is. 60 Israeli hostages at least killed by Israeli bombs. What do you think is happening to the Palestinians?
How many buildings were struck by over 2,000 indiscriminate terrorist rockets that misfired and landed in Gaza itself?
I love this as well, because they constantly say Hamas are firing rockets at Israel, and this is such a danger, even though they rarely kill anyone with these rockets. And then all of a sudden we're supposed to believe that Al-Ahli hospital, the Baptist hospital, was blown up by a Hamas rocket that killed 400 people. How come these Hamas rockets never killed 400 people in one fell swoop in Israel then, if they're that lethal? How come this never happened again inside of Gaza, if these rockets are that lethal? You really have to be senile or gullible as hell to believe anything that this guy is saying. And it's so horrendous to listen to. And once again, we come back to the point, this has nothing to do with South Africa's case. It doesn't matter what Hamas did. You are on fucking trial, not Hamas.
Court is told of over 23,000
in attacks in order to reduce collateral damage. This is a directive that binds all IDF forces. It continues by stating that the laws of armed conflict allow destruction to civilian property only when there is a military necessity to do so, and prohibit harm to property for deterrence purposes only, or for the purpose of punishment, individual or collective. It emphasises that it is necessary to treat enemy civilians with respect. They should not be treated in a humiliating manner, and civilians should not be used for the purpose of performing activities that might put them under risk to their life or their body. This is a mandatory instruction, effective.
So he's trying to say that Israeli troops, if they were committing any crimes, they would be, held to the rigorous Israeli standard of justice, which is non-existent. Israelis can write and say whatever they like, but what their actions indicate are something entirely different. And again, the funny thing is that the way they speak in English is not the same way they speak in Hebrew. A lot of these statements that they made, the genocidal statements, were not in English. They were done in Hebrew, because no one, in the West, it's going to sound differently when it's translated than if you actually hear it in English, right? They choose their words a bit more carefully when they're they're speaking in English, right? So let me just show you some. This is from the beginning.
The immediate and proximate context for the specific allegations of genocide claimed by South Africa lies in the events of the 7th of October, when Hamas militants and other armed groups and individuals stormed into the internationally recognized sovereign territory of Israel and committed acts of barely credible atrocity.
No, they're not internationally recognized. Half the Arab countries don't recognize them, and most people in Gaza come from the places that were attacked. Most people in Gaza come from other places in Palestine, including some of the places that were attacked on October 7th. So if someone comes and kicks you out of your house and then you try to take it back, that doesn't mean you're a racist. It means you just want your fucking house back. And then he tries to say that they committed all these atrocities. Listen to him.
It was these events that truly constitute the real context for South Africa's allegations. Indeed, such acts may be seen as the real genocide in this situation. As the President of the European Commission put it on the 19th of October,
So he's saying that they once again, I read this to you, that they mutilated and killed babies. This is a lie. There's one single baby that was killed that day. And I don't know who killed them by accident. It could have been the Israelis. It could have been Hamas, but it's one. and no one was decapitated and no one was thrown into an oven like they're claiming. This is complete lies. And the Israelis are destroying evidence from that day. They're crushing all of these cars that were, burnt to a crisp by the attack helicopters and the tanks that they brought, the Israelis. Hamas do not have that firepower. They do not bring that firepower. And they're doing this on purpose because then there will be no forensic evidence for any potential future investigation to determine, okay, who actually killed these people? What, these marks, the burn marks, the blast marks, what caliber, what kind of ordnance would cause this? Who has this stuff? Oh, it's the Israelis. Again, they even had to walk back the death toll several times. They said it was 1,400, then it's 1,200, and it turns out the burned bodies, their spokesperson, Mark, the propagandist, said that they were all Hamas fighters. I don't believe that, but it shows you that the burned bodies were not done by Hamas. I showed you the drone footage, the helicopter footage, the interviews. There's so much, and these are all Israeli sources. No one else, only Israeli sources that I showed you. The Israeli military, Israeli newspapers, no one else, and Israeli hostages. That's it. They are, showing and proving that a lot of Israelis killed that day were killed by Israeli forces. So, even if you would accept this premise, which you shouldn't, because as I said, it's an absolute, you have no way of knowing because they're destroying the evidence. Let me show you the response from South Africa.
Self-defense is no answer to genocide. Nothing can ever justify genocide. There is no balancing exercise as Israel has sought to suggest. The prohibition is absolute. No matter what some individual within the group of Palestine and Gaza may have done, and no matter how great the threat to Israel's citizens might be, genocidal attacks on the whole of Gaza and the whole of its population with the intent of destroying them cannot be justified at all.
Absolutely, and they started their opening argument with the Nakba, with the term catastrophe in Arabic, Nakba, because this refers to the beginning of the ethnic cleansing and the genocide in 1948. It's been ongoing ever since. The thing is that if they were really to come to the ICJ and go through the entire history, it would never end. The point of South Africa's application here is to stop the Israelis in their tracks. Because by getting a ruling, remember, these are preliminary hearings. It will take the ICJ years to actually issue a final verdict on this. But just with the evidence and the application at face value, they could make a decision within a few weeks that says, look, this is concerning enough. The Israelis have to take every measure to stop this genocide, and if there is one happening, and everybody else has to do the same thing to prevent and punish perpetrators of genocide. And so this would make it much more difficult for them to continue what they're doing in Gaza. I don't think they're going to listen to it, and I don't think that they will come to this decision because it doesn't suit them. Remember, this is a politicized court, but that's the point here. So, it's not even just about October 7th. This goes way, way, way back. The funny thing now is that Germany have said that they will come as a third party and support the Israelis in their, in their hot situation at the ICJ. And I mean, I don't know what to say here. It's not a very good look. It's not a good look to bring Germany, which is an expert in genocide, to a court, to defend you when you're being accused of genocide. Actually, that's probably the last country that you should bring next to the UK and in the US. I mean, you really can't make this stuff up. You cannot make this up. So the Germans are now saying that, there's nothing happening in Gaza, that they reject this, this case by South Africa. And, this is typical slimy behavior from the Germans, because they have this Holocaust guilt complex, because they think that, by just bending over backwards to defend Israel, that this will make up for what they did to Jews and Slavs during the Holocaust in World War II. These things are unrelated. They're unrelated. And it shows you the Germans have learned nothing. They are still anti-Semites. Remember, Palestinians are Semites. They're really actual Semites. You can't say the same for the Israeli politicians. Many of them are not Semites. The people that founded Israel are not Semites. Netanyahu, they're all Eastern Europeans. They're Ashkenazi. and they have the nerve to then call other people anti-Semitic while they're killing Semites. It's really funny. So Germany, basically, they committed one Holocaust, and now they were like, oh, there's another one in Gaza? Quick, we have to come and be complicit in this. You can't have a genocide without us taking part. Remember, it's not just the Holocaust, by the way. The Germans, they also, in Africa, committed genocide in Namibia, right? What is today Namibia? It used to be a German colony. And this is in the beginning of the 20th century. They committed genocide there. And then, of course, the Turks, the Ottomans, they killed 1.5 million Armenians. Who were the Turks' allies in World War I? The Germans. So they were also they also provided support for that genocide too. So we're talking about 4 different genocides: Gaza, Namibia, Armenia, and then, of course, the Holocaust in World War II. So they learn absolutely nothing. They say, oh, never again. But no, they're doing it again. You can see it in broad daylight. They should really be ashamed of themselves. Just disgusting, absolutely disgusting. And honestly, if I were Jewish and Israeli, I would. I'd be insulted to see the Germans. Like, what the fuck are you doing here? Who needs you? Like, this just makes you look horrible. Again, Germany is not the country you want at your side when you're accused of genocide, because they are the last ones to speak. This is a funny tweet that I found. It is in German culture, it is considered rude to commit a genocide without inviting a German to participate. Yeah, it certainly seems that way. So here's Justin Trudeau, Genocide Trudeau, giving his opinion on this.
What is Canada's position on South Africa's case at the ICJ on Israel committing genocide in Gaza?
Canada has long been a tremendous supporter of the international rules-based order and the processes and structures that have been put in place over the past decades to be able to actually ensure that international law is respected and enforced. And the ICJ, the International Court of Justice, is a key part of that. Canada right now is directly engaged in at least 5 different cases at the ICJ because we believe in the importance of that as an institution. But our wholehearted support of the ICJ and its processes does not mean that we support the premise of the case brought forward by South Africa. We will continue to follow closely. The first phase of the ICJ hearings actually just ended hours ago with Israel completing its submission, and I can assure you there will be a ministerial statement in the coming hours laying out in detail Canada's position.
It's funny is that not only is, of course, Canada a country that was founded on genocide. Remember when the so-called New World was found, meaning the Americas, Europeans rushed over and slaughtered millions of people through, there was disease, of course, but then systematic campaigns of ethnic cleansing and genocide. They would even kill off their food supplies so natives could not survive. And Canada, to this day, oppresses natives. I did a report about 2 years ago how they found hundreds of dead children's skeletons buried, of native children buried under these schools where they had kidnapped these children and then killed them. Horrific shit, really horrific. And so, completely in line with Israeli policy. I'm not surprised whatsoever that a country founded on genocide would then go to Israel's defense. Another country founded on genocide and another product of the British Empire, just like Canada. The other thing is that this hypocrite, he said that Trudeau said that what Russia is doing in Ukraine is a genocide. He used that word, genocide. Obviously, it's fucking not, because they used to be one country and they're one people. So they're basically cousins or brothers. It's hardly a different race, and there's hardly any genocidal intent. I mean, how can you possibly say that that's a genocide? You could disagree with it. You can call it a war of aggression or whatever you want. It's not a genocide. I mean, what's happening in Gaza, that's a genocide. This 75 years of Nakba is a genocide. I think it's 520 children that have been killed in Ukraine since the start of the war. Obviously, that's 520 too many, but we're talking about 8,000 at least in Gaza. The numbers alone are incomparable. Never mind the language, never mind the context, the history, the identity of who is doing it and who is suffering the genocide. And he rushes to to say that's genocidal. And then here we have, I mean, overwhelming evidence. There's never been anything like this in human history, where you have not only this genocide broadcast on live TV, but from the moment it started, right? From the moment it started, you could also look at 1948 the same way, but especially now with phones and cameras and the internet, in real time, we know that it's happening. And the evidence is, I mean, it's incontrovertible, it's insurmountable. There's so much of it. And on top of that, the Israelis are playing the victim. So, whichever way you look at this, the characteristics of what's happening in Gaza, they are truly unprecedented, right? You've never had someone slaughter this many civilians, in a campaign of genocide, and then do that while saying they are the victim. This is unbelievable. And that's exactly what the Israelis did today. I mean, funny thing is, one of these judges looked like he was falling asleep.
Leaving the other party flummoxed. Professor Dugard explains that South Africa had voiced it.
He looks like he was falling asleep. I don't know if he actually was, but I really regretted waking up to listen to this drivel. So predictable. Here, look at what Israeli media were saying. You're going to laugh at this.
And right now, Omar, of course, Israel is being tried at the International Court of Justice for genocide, a case that's being brought by South Africa over Israel's war with another Iranian proxy, Hamas. As a Syrian, how do you feel about this? I mean, given that Assad has never faced justice over his, as you put out, killing of tens of thousands of Syrians.
Yeah, to be honest with you, it's so funny when the international community just picked, as they wish, one case and put it in a justice way, and they left the criminal of era now, Bashar al-Assad, who killed 500,000 in his prisons. Now we talk about more than 1 million civilians. We talk about 70 million around the world displaced, and we ask them, since 11, 12 years. Where is your justice? When you are talking about justice in the world, you have to be fair. And that's my comment. I would love, I mean, I am a political activist since years, and I meet with many officials. I talk to them, where's the justice, even the UN? We continue meeting, but we don't see any real results. And you are now giving, you don't focus on his crimes, even in the past weeks. He continue attacking civilians in Idlib and other provinces. So there's no real justice in this world when they are talking about one part and closing their eyes on the other part, which is the big criminal in the region, in the area, in this time, Bashar al-Assad and the Iranian militia who supported him since years.
Yeah, of course, and Assad has been embraced, hasn't he, by the Arab League. He's been readmitted into the Arab League. Jordan led that initiative, but.
So I really found this funny. First of all, whatever you want to say about al-Assad, it's not a genocide because it's the same country. Okay, and it's true Syria has over a dozen ethnicities and religious groups, but it still wasn't against one particular ethnicity with the intent of wiping them out. It just wasn't. There is no genocide in Syria. Number two, Israel participated in this war. They are belligerent. They were working with Al-Qaeda. They have wanted for a long time to destroy Syria because Syria doesn't recognize them and won't legitimize them. Israel is occupying Syria. I don't know how this guy, goes on an Israeli channel and legitimizes them when they are stealing drinking water from Syrians and making sure that Syria is bombed every 2 weeks. And the points he is making, not only is the comparison obscene, from a logical point of view and a moral point of view, but he's also factually incorrect. He says that Bashar al-Assad hasn't been punished by the international community. Of course he fucking has. The entire EU has put sanctions on Syria that are starving Syrians. That's true, actually, in a way. They're not punishing al-Assad. They're punishing everyone in Syria except him. That's true. But the point is that they have made him a pariah. I mean, it didn't work in the end entirely because, we have a multipolar world now. But generally speaking, they absolutely put Caesar's Act sanctions on Syria. They even, I think, tried to withdraw his wife's citizenship in the UK, which has literally nothing to do with anything. They sanctioned his son, who wasn't even 18. I don't even know what he owns that you could sanction. So they tried to make al-Assad a pariah. What is he talking about? The irony here is that half of the shit more than half of the shit they were saying about Syria is fake. They made it up. You remember the gas attacks, even from the beginning of the war, you know, they would twist things and lie about it to create divide inside of the country. And, you know, the thing is that when we talk about Israel, this stuff is documented. It's proven. Again, it's insurmountable. There's so much of it and no way around it. What is he comparing? This person this guy is an Uncle Tom. That's what he is. That's what this guy is. You know, the master let him into the house and gave him a little platform, and he jumps and does tricks like a good poodle for the Israeli master. No self-respect, like zero self-respect. Honestly, no Syrian would go on an Israeli channel. This is a bingo card that someone made about Israel's presentation today, and funnily enough, it's bingo. These are all the things that the Israelis mentioned. They mentioned the Holocaust, which once again has nothing to do with Palestinians, because guess what? They're not Europeans. Also, they're coming for you too, right? They said that, well, of course, October 7, they mentioned the tunnels. They mentioned trying to minimize civilian casualties, the voluntary relocation. And you can see the scribble, the marks here. It says third speaker opening statement. It says exactly who made these comments. And then they mentioned the promised land, Hitler, Hamas. They voted for Hamas, self-defense, good versus evil, the most moral army in the world, beheaded babies. You get the idea. It's so predictable, truly so predictable. It's not even funny. It's just exhausting, truly exhausting. And I want to show you this. This is from Torah Jews. They posted that as Torah Jews, we support the lawsuit filed by the Republic of South Africa at the International Court of Justice on the grounds that Israel violated the Genocide Convention in Gaza. The genocide committed by the Zionist state of Israel. See how they say the Zionist state, not the Jewish state. The genocide committed by the Zionist state of Israel against the Palestinian people must not go unpunished, and the Zionists must be tried in front of all humanity. We stand with the Palestinian people. Here's also South African Jews for a free Palestine who are protesting in favor of the Palestinians, saying Zionism is racism, ceasefire now, stop the genocide. And here Mary made a very good point that when they were saying, you know, that there's access to water, or they give the Palestinians water, you know, how generous of them, giving them their own water. It's a lie. Look at the challenges that people face trying to drink in Gaza. This is horrific. Look how they have to collect water, this dirty water.
مش ميه حلوه في البلد نشربها، وانبعوا بروح ميه حلوه بيطلبوا لنا اياها. هاي حالنا. زين الله. هكذا هي المعاناة اليومية للمواطنين هنا في مخيم جباليا.
These are the daily obstacles and struggles for the residents of the Jabalia refugee camp. And even before October 7th, over 90% of the water in Gaza was undrinkable, unsafe for human consumption, before October 7th. You know, so just all in all, I mean, South Africa's case, rock solid. Israel's defense, pathetic, truly pathetic. I mean, it wasn't worthy, you know, of 1 minute of anyone's time.
The moment, as you'll know, Yotam, Israel is having its chance today to defend itself against arguments made yesterday by lawyers for the South African government that it is involved in an exercise of genocide in Gaza. What are Israelis telling you about that? What are the people that you speak to more generally telling you about that?
Well, first of all, they can't believe that this is actually happening. It seems surreal. It's like a Twilight Zone. You have a terrorist entity that by all standards
Yeah, I can imagine why being held accountable for once in your life would be a shock to a Zionist. Yeah. Because the Israelis are so used to being above the law and above criticism and above accountability that it's shocking that the international legal framework established after World War II actually does what it's supposed to do. And again, we're talking about a very, barely. This is the first time that Palestinians are just heard out, the first time that someone has come to a court and held up what they're doing in front of the world to see. The first time in 75 years. And again, he starts with Hamas and Hamas. It seems like Israelis, they have like a physical impediment where they're unable to speak about anything without mentioning the Holocaust and Hamas. Why are you talking to me about Hamas and the Holocaust? I don't care about Nazi Germany and about Hamas. We're talking about Palestinian civilians that are being slaughtered in their thousands. What the hell does that have to do with anything? The funny thing is that, today they started interviewing. They're not going to bring Palestinians on, by the way, to talk about this. Only Israelis, right? And today, the mainstream media, on Sky News and other channels, they broadcast the hearing. The 3-hour Israeli presentation, they broadcast it. They didn't broadcast South Africa's presentation of the case yesterday. Isn't that funny? So, suddenly they got the rights and they got the manpower and the staff were all there so they could broadcast Israel's entire bullshit, but not South Africa's, right? How unbiased, how completely objective, just showing one side of the argument. Lovely. I mean, this is state media brainwashing of the worst, the cheapest, and the most ridiculous kind. They're not even trying to hide it, right? It's like, yeah, it's a court case, but we're only going to show you what one side says. So, you don't get confused. Really pathetic. Really, really pathetic. I don't think there's anything else to add. I think that's really about it. As I said, they just need a few weeks to come to again, this is an emergency situation where you just want to have the court say, okay, we need you to actually respect what the Genocide Convention says and not commit genocide. And then this makes it incumbent upon all signatories and parties to the convention and UN member states to uphold that. This should go, it should go without saying that they should do that anyway. Unfortunately, they don't. But it's so telling that the few moments where you see some form of accountability, not total, very limited in scope, it's enough to send them over the edge. They cannot stand it. If this were anyone else in the court, as Trudeau said, they're working on 5 different cases. They have all the time in the world to accuse the Chinese of genocide, to accuse the Russians of genocide, to accuse Bashar al-Assad of genocide, all the usual evil actors, but never themselves. They are above the law. Israel can do no wrong. America can do no wrong. Britain can do no wrong. Canada can do no wrong. They are fucking saints and angels. So the damage is done towards the Israelis. It's not about doing damage. It's just getting the truth out there. But from their perspective, they are losing their grip on the narrative. For them, it's about propaganda. It's a propaganda war. For Palestinians, it's just about being heard. It's just about having the truth out there. Any serious human being, any serious person, any sane, rational person will just want to see what the truth is, and then they can make an informed decision and based upon that, without propaganda, without brainwashing. And when you provide people with that, you can quickly see who's the oppressor and who is the oppressed. The Israelis are not oppressed. They are privileged beyond belief. I mean, they receive more money in weapons from the Americans than any country on earth. They are above criticism in Western mainstream media, which is supposed to be a free press, allegedly. They are truly, given all sorts of accolades and perks politically by the media, logistical, and immune from criticism. And then the second that their dirty laundry is held up in public, they start losing their minds. Well, then don't commit genocide. It's very simple. South Africa have done everybody a service. It's not about doing the Palestinians justice alone. It's about upholding the law. It's about really showing that they do this not out of self-interest. They are selfless. South Africa has no connection to Palestine, except the fact that both of them have experienced apartheid. Yes, but you know, they're not a Muslim country. They're not an Arab country. They are not a neighboring country. There isn't, you know, you wouldn't imagine that there's a connection between the two. And that is what makes this case so powerful. How can you possibly accuse them of bias? They are just bringing the facts and nothing but the facts. And this makes it even more powerful than if a Muslim or an Arab country had brought it. And if a Muslim or Arab country had brought it, it would be just as legitimate and just as true and just as much based on facts. But this makes it even harder for them to criticize South Africa and the merits of the case, but it doesn't stop them from doing it. They still go ahead and start saying insane batshit stuff like, oh, they're a proxy. How are they a proxy? What makes them a proxy? Why didn't you say they're a proxy before? You know, just... They're ridiculous. And my favorite part of all this is the technicality they tried arguing today. So the Israelis said that basically that South Africa, look, Article 9 of the Genocide Convention. Sorry, no, it's I think it was Article 9. Give me 1 second. It's basically the point that you have to have disputes between states, right? So if you want to bring a case to the International Court of Justice, not the ICC, but the ICJ, you need to have a dispute that exists between two states, because the ICJ can rule on, it can give an opinion on a legal matter, right? It can give a ruling on a legal matter and say, well, you guys disagree about this. This is what must be done. And they have to respect it because it's legally binding and there are no appeals. So they were saying that basically there is no dispute between the two, right? Yeah, it is Article 9 of the Genocide Convention. I was correct. I just wanted to double check. And Israel was arguing that this case that South Africa's brought isn't legitimate, and the ICJ doesn't have jurisdiction, and it's not right because they didn't talk about it first before going to the court, which is wrong. It's not true. South Africa told the Israelis that they intend to file at the ICJ. And, you know, and then the Israelis said that they wanted to meet or something for consultations, and then nothing happened afterwards after that. Yeah, but, okay, you didn't meet for consultations, but the dispute exists. If there's no dispute, why did you show up to the court then? Why are you countering? Well, they're not countering, really. They're deflecting. But why did you bother speaking for 3 hours then if you have no dispute with what South Africa is saying? There's absolutely a dispute between the two, and they're trying to get off on a technicality, which isn't a very strong argument when you're being accused of genocide. If you're really innocent, then show the proof that you're innocent. You know, this is, I know the burden of proof is on South Africa, but they've already fulfilled the burden. Israel are unable to counter or contest anything that's been brought forward, so they don't even address it. This is how hollow and pathetic the entire presentation was today. Truly abysmal. It was a waste of time to even watch it. But it's funny that watching them trying to argue about this stupid technicality, it doesn't matter. It doesn't change. Even if the ICJ, as I said, don't rule in South Africa's favor, it's not going to change the reality on the ground. And South Africa bringing this case, they have shown to the world what Israel really is. And the damage control that the media have tried doing by not showing the 3-hour hearing from yesterday, when they were showing all the evidence and laying it out, all the quotes, all the officials, all the photographs. I mean, horrific stuff, really horrific. You can't stop this. No one has done more to delegitimize Israel than Israelis and Zionists themselves. No one has done more. They are entirely responsible for delegitimizing themselves if they had any legitimacy to begin with. So let's talk about Yemen. Just give me a second first, please. I see we've got some donations on PayPal. Thank you to Mehdi for the donation. Thank you also to Edit the Story, and thank you also to Ali. Thank you very much. We've also got another donation from Kazoo. We have another one from Usman, says, thank you for real journalism. Thank you very much. And we have another donation from Irfan, says, for the truth. We have another donation from Yusuf, who says, telling the truth. And there's another one on PayPal. This is from Rossi, says, honest journalism. Thank you. And we have one here from Amanda. And we have one here from from Hamad. Thank you all of you for the generous donations. I appreciate it very much and your kind words. And I see we have some on Rumble as well, so I'll read them to you. Just let me scroll up to find them. Yeah, we have one from D Motos. It's good to see you, who says thank you. We have Gold Alchemist. It's good to see you as well. Says, can I buy your scarf from you? I'm afraid this one's not for sale, but I appreciate the comment. And Makic says, everything is so transparent, it blows my mind how the mainstream buffoons can still keep on repeating the same tired crap. Zionism is a hell of a drug. MG7 says 15. Thank you for the donations, all of you. I appreciate the kind words. And again, if you're able to, please subscribe on Patreon, where you can give a monthly donation. It can be anything you'd like. It can be 1 ruble, I think $1, £2, anything you like. And you would be supporting independent journalism and helping me make up for the money I lost by YouTube demonetizing me and punishing me for exposing Israel. So it's very important to donate if you can. But remember, sharing the videos, just educating people is the most important thing. It's the quintessential way to fight back, is just to open people's eyes. So I really mean this. You know, if you can post them on social media, send them to friends or family, please do it. Because they're not going to get half of this stuff watching mainstream media and you know, going through the Western education and media system. You just get brainwashed in the end. It's designed that way on purpose to make sure everyone's conditioned. Thank you, Wild Rose, for it says grateful for you. Thank you very much, and thank you, Shelly, for the nice comment. Big Teal, yeah, I was thinking of Rick James earlier. You know, Zionism is a hell of a drug, so. I'll begin with Yemen in just a second. All right. So I'm just setting this up also so we can be live everywhere. And really, the most pathetic thing is Germany with this you know, backing Israel up. They are so you know, consumed and compelled by their Holocaust guilt that they want to participate in new Holocausts as if that makes anything better. It shows that they have learned absolutely nothing. Really pathetic. So. Shelly says, listening while cooking, as good a time as any. Gold Alchemist says, where can I buy a scarf like that? What's it called? I was literally going to give you the website. I'm sorry. It's from the same one. Let me type it out. I was just trying to read all of them before I moved on. Sorry, one second. Let me type it out for you in the chat. I think they're sold out. That's the problem. But I've put the link. It's Hirbawi, and they are really great. They are really, really great. Okay, I put www so it works. It wasn't working there. Radio Free America says the autobiography is always better than the biography. Richard brings the autobiography of the Arab people. That's a very, very eloquent way to put it, and I appreciate that very much. And what I'm trying to do always is bridge the two, because you don't have that connection. You know, you have people, of course, who a lot of people, you know, who know the history, but you know, maybe they don't speak English, or English isn't their mother tongue, or they have, you know, they have a name that people in the West just don't know how to pronounce, and you know, whatever tiny advantages that you have when presenting, it's not an argument, it's just the truth, it's the history. I hope that I can help out in that bridge, because in the West, as I said, the education system, the media, they make sure you don't know the history and the context about anything, whether we're talking about Syria, whether we're talking about Palestine, colonialism in Africa, you know, all of these things that expose Western crimes. You're not going to, it's difficult to get the truth. It exists and you have to dig for it. Most people don't have time. They're conditioned. They're conditioned to reject it. They're conditioned to one version of history. And it's difficult for Arabs, it's difficult for people who come from the colonized countries to actually get a foothold in the West and educate people where the education is needed the most. It's not needed in the Arab world. Everyone knows what the truth is there. They're living it. So, you know, I hope and strive to always be that bridge, because it's important. Thank you all of you, Shazi, and thank you, Big Teal. I appreciate it very much, and you're very kind. So we have a new member on Patreon. It's Natalia. Thank you. And we also have Ali who joined. I owe both of you a crab dance, and then we'll continue.
Clap for that, you stupid bastard. Corn Pop was a bad dude, and he ran a bunch of bad boys.
Listen, fuckhead, you have fucking crossed the line, claiming I'm the enemy. You got that, you goddamn son of a bitch?
I don't give a fuck what you think, bitch.
Good morning. Sunday morning.
Cut that bitch off.
Thank you for Iron Dome.
Thank you.
والله في كلاب بصراحة يعني. ماشي نشتغل عادي.
We lied, we cheated, we stole.
China.
And you ain't black.
There's always the macro.
And then there's the micro.
Do not come. Do not come.
I'm gonna come.
You talking to me?
Ladies and gentlemen, I'll have 2 number 9s, a number 9 large.
We got him.
Because I have to do it myself. I know it's not.
I've fallen and I can't get up.
Oh!
Disgusting!
She was 12, I was 30, but anyway. We'll do it live! Fuck it! Do it live! I'll write it and we'll do it live!
Why attack Sanders? Why? You're getting nervous, man. Calm down. It's okay. Okay.
Suck my dick and choke on it! I yield my time! Fuck you!
I love a good crab dance. I think that's the first one we've played since Christmas. So thank you again, all of you, for your support. I'm very grateful. Okay, so I'm just starting this up on Twitter. Okay, I think we're live now, so I can go ahead with Yemen. All right. Where to begin? I'm just going to pull up a map very quickly so you guys can see. I'm always looking for excuses to pull up maps. So give me 1 second. I'll show you Yemen. You remember the part 1 I did with that about the part 1 and part 2, the mini documentary I did about the gas and the real reasons behind the war in Yemen. I wanted to illustrate why they are going after this region in particular, right? So the most important trade routes, all of the oil, everything is here. And this is a crossroads between 3 continents, right? Between Europe, Asia, and Africa. So here you can see why they bombed Yemen and why this is causing such a headache for them. There we go. Perfect. So I put up all the straits there and you can see it for yourselves. So the US, the UK, and a bunch of their allies decided that the best way to solve the blockade in the Red Sea is to bomb Yemen, right? So instead of reining in their bloodhound Israel, they thought, no, let's just go and bomb the Yemenis. We haven't killed enough people in Yemen, apparently. We haven't created enough of a humanitarian crisis there and, given people cholera and starved children and killed enough in Gaza. No, let's just go and kill more Arabs. This is always the solution for Westerners, right? So they went and they bombed Hodeidah, which is a major port. They bombed Sana'a, which is the capital. They bombed all over Yemen. And they did this, of course, using Arab countries, which is probably the biggest slap in the face of all of them. And I say Arab in quotation marks. The people there are certainly Arab, but the leaders are not. You have Zionists, you have cloaked Zionists who look like Arabs and speak Arabic, but they're not Arabs. I'm talking, of course, about, you know, the kingdoms and the you know, like Saudi Arabia and so on, who allow the Americans to come and put their military bases there, which is I mean, really, which is scandalous beyond belief. So they, you know, it was Qatar, Saudi Arabia, and the UAE who opened up their airspace for British and American aircraft to go bomb Yemen. And they, I'm going to show you one of the videos. They also took off from Cyprus because, you know, as you know, Britain has a big base there to this day. There you have the Americans taking off in the Red Sea. And I often wonder, and I ask myself, what the hell, you know, are these countries doing in the Red Sea? They call this defensive. How is it defensive? Defensive is if someone comes to, you know, the UK or comes to the US and then attacks people. That, yeah, you know, like the Germans when they bomb London and they do, you know, they blitz London. Yeah, you have to bomb them back. That's defensive. What does this have to do with Yemen? You know, is the United States located in the Red Sea? Is the UK located in the Red Sea? This is the problem when you're talking about the colonial mindset with, you know, people who are thieves, people who steal, which is the only way you can describe these governments. They are thieves, the biggest thieves on this planet. They don't think in terms of borders. They think everything belongs to them. They're like fat, greedy little children, you know, spoiled brats. And so they have the audacity to then call this defensive. When they are bullies. They are bullies. There's no other way to describe this. And the countries that participated in this attack are Australia, Bahrain, Canada, Denmark, Germany, the Netherlands, New Zealand, South Korea, and of course Britain and the United States. Make no mistake, though, this attack was done on behalf of Israel at the behest of the Israelis, right? You know, one way of looking at it is that, you know, Biden wants to appease Netanyahu. It's not about that only. Remember, we are talking about countries that are suffering, in quotation marks, of course, because of this blockade. They are being impacted drastically by this blockade because it's an effective one, right? You have global trade, 15% of global trade that comes through this passage. That goes past Yemen, up the Red Sea, so into the Bab el-Mandeb Strait, up the Red Sea, through the Suez Canal, and then into the Mediterranean. It connects essentially Europe with the rest of Asia, right? And now these ships have to go around Africa, you know, around the Cape of Good Hope, all the way down south, you know, and then sail all the way back up Western Africa. And this adds enormous amounts of money and time, right? It's bad for business. And, you know, capitalism, of course, was you know, it came out of Britain. Its you know, biggest poster child is America, and so these people will do anything for money, right? As soon as you mess with their money, as soon as you start, you know, digging, or should I say, you know, chipping away at their pockets, then they jump into action and they start using violence as you know, a remedial measure, not diplomacy. I mean, the logical, the sound, rational thing to do here in this situation, if you're really concerned about freedom of navigation, you would sit down with the Israelis and tell them to stop their bullshit and, you know, stop giving them weapons so they can't continue, and then there's no problem. But the thing is that this is a myth when they say that, oh, well, Yemen are attacking freedom of navigation. No, they're not. Yemen are saying any other ship besides Israeli ship, you know, can pass. If you're a Chinese ship, you can sail up the Red Sea, no problem. You can sail past the Bab el-Mandeb Strait. There's no issue. The only ships that cannot pass are Israeli ships, Israeli-bound ships, and Israeli-linked ships, which is apparently, you know, you have so many people in America, in Britain, who claim they speak English, who call themselves, Anglo-Saxon or Anglo-American, who say they're US and British citizens, but they cannot speak fucking English. They don't understand what it means Israeli-bound ships that are going to Israel. It doesn't matter what flag is on the ship. If Yemen attacked a ship that has a non-Israeli flag, that doesn't mean that they're not achieving or working towards the same objective. The point is no business with Israel. No, Israel is not going to murder Arabs and slaughter Palestinians and continue as if nothing is happening without consequences. If you are from any country and you are going to Eliat, you're going to the Israelis and conducting business with the Israelis, which benefits the Israelis, you will be stopped. Not because of where you come from, but because of the Israelis. They need to be punished. And this is what international law says. Look, Article 1 of the Genocide Convention, and again, this is very relevant because Israel is being taken to the ICJ, to the World Court, and precisely because of genocide, because they're violating the Genocide Convention. Article 1 says that you will prevent and punish perpetrators of genocide. It's your duty to punish them. It says the word punish is in Article 1. And again, you can pick whichever one. Prevent, punish is the same thing, really. The goal, the end result is the same. You will deprive the perpetrator of resources and inflict upon them, various consequences, be they financial or otherwise. And I should remind you, Yemen have not killed a single person. What did the Americans do? They killed 10 Yemenis, right? 10 Yemeni Marines on the 31st. And then the airstrikes that followed last night, they also killed more people. The thing here is that if these countries that attacked Yemen really cared about international law, like they constantly lecture and babble on about endlessly about how fucking sanctimonious and holy and holier than thou they are and amazing and what angels, they would apply these conventions. They would apply what Article 1 says. They would not arm Israel. They would not facilitate logistical support or provide Israel with media and political cover. They would be shredding Israel's reputation and shaming them and preventing them from carrying out. But of course, they are complicit in this genocide. And the funny thing is that you have some people in the United States that don't see the problem with bombing Yemen. They see this more as a problem of Biden doing it without getting permission from Congress, which again is this typical, this egocentric, selfish, pompous, arrogant way of looking at things. Like, the Washington is the center of the world. No, it's not. This may be rough to hear, but the world does not care about the U.S. Constitution. It's not, it's not disrespectful. It's just the United States is its own country. It does not have jurisdiction on everybody else. So whether the U.S. Congress allows Biden to go and bomb Yemen or not doesn't change anything. It doesn't change the fact that it's illegal under international law and that it's an act of aggression and that it's imperialist bullshit. It doesn't change this fact. The U.S. Congress, they voted to invade Iraq and they voted to invade Afghanistan when we talk about the authorization for the use of military force, AUMF 2001 and 2002, these are the specific, the specific authorizations Congress gave for this action. It was still illegal, Now, specifically with Iraq, this was illegal. They tried going to the UN. The UN said, no, we're not going to allow this. And they went and bombed Iraq anyway. So again, I'm going to ask you again, does it make it all right that the U.S. invaded Iraq because Congress authorized this? No, it doesn't. So this is irrelevant. It's an additional point, of course, that needs to be looked at because it shows you the only reason we should look at this is because it shows you Biden is not, less dangerous than Trump. He's just the same as Trump. And I'll read this tweet to you from Joe Biden, where he says here that this is on this is from 2020, right? He says, let's be clear, Donald Trump does not have the authority to take us into war with Iran without congressional approval. A president should never take this nation to war without the informed consent of the American people. Yes, I mean, that sounds very nice on paper. Here's a headline from the New York Times, and you tell me if the American people have informed consent. This was published today. It says, who are the Houthis and why is the United States attacking them? Now, if the American public were educated and informed, do you think that the so-called paper of record, the New York Times, would have to print such a headline that says, "Who are the Houthis?" This sounds like they're talking to a public that is not educated. And I don't mean this in any offensive way. On the contrary, the American public are victims of the war machine and people like Joe Biden and Donald Trump. They are victims of the education system, which teaches them to be ignorant and to think in the same imperialist way. It's through no fault of their own. But it's just to prove a point here that Joe Biden is just as reckless as Donald Trump. As a matter of fact, you could argue he's even more reckless. He spent more time being reckless and killing people in Washington than Donald Trump has, although they're just equally as bad in my opinion. And, you know, this shows you also that the consent of the American public and the consent of Congress is irrelevant. The presidents do what they want. And the irony is that even if they did go to Congress, Congress is so filled with bloodthirsty monsters who work for the arms industry that they would just okay it anyway. He doesn't even have to go to Congress. Congress are not going to punish him. Now, under the War Powers Resolution of 1973, this was after Nixon was caught bombing Laos and Cambodia secretly. You know, like bombing Vietnam was okay, you know, with all the napalm and the cluster bombs, that's fine. But Laos and Cambodia is where we really draw the line. So anyway, they passed the War Powers Resolution, which says that an American president can take actions that are so-called defensive. This was obviously not defensive. But he has to inform Congress within 48 hours in writing, and then Congress can decide whether this action can continue you know, they can renew it. I think it's every 6 months, or sorry, 60 days. And the point is that, you know, he has to go and inform Congress. I've no doubt that Joe Biden did that. But the thing is that this doesn't change the fact that he's considering it an afterthought. And as I said, Congress, even if he had gone beforehand, they would just allow it anyway because they are like Joe Biden and they are all part of the same war machine. You know, there are incalculable numbers of people that have been killed and displaced by U.S. wars that attest to this fact. Now, the other thing is Rishi Sunak, the British Prime Minister, who is unelected. You know, I've literally lost count of how many unelected prime ministers there have been in the last 2 decades. Too many to count. And, you know, he's an unelected fart that no one ever heard of. And a lapdog, you know, he's like Tony Blair. He just runs after Washington, after George Bush, and Rishi Sunak runs after Joe Biden, who is senile and a mass murderer and does whatever he's told. You know, he's happy to go along for the ride, like a dog who's sitting with his window outside the car, you know, sticking out the car window. So that's the only way you can describe him. He is ridiculous. And David Cameron, I'll show you both of them right now as they're speaking about what they've done, you know, how benevolent they think their actions are. Listen to this.
Well, look, our aim is very clear. It's to de-escalate tensions and to restore stability to the...
Yeah, de-escalate. That's when you tell Israel, continue with your genocide and we will go and bomb Yemen. That's de-escalation. Yeah. Very diplomatic. You know, you can tell he's a seasoned fucking statesman.
The region, and that's why allies over the past few weeks have issued several statements of condemnation of what's happening, calling on the Houthis to desist. Indeed, just this week we've seen a UN Security Council resolution condemning what's happening and saying that states have a right to self-defense. We have acted in self-defense. It's incumbent now on the Houthis to stop carrying out these attacks, putting people's lives at risk and disrupting the global economy. I chaired a COBRA meeting yesterday, convened cabinet, and relevant opposition politicians were informed. Every case is different. What we have done here is take limited and necessary action in response to a specific threat in self-defense. And if you look at similar situations in 2015 and 2018, a statement was made to Parliament after the action, and that's what I will be doing on Monday. I'll be making a full statement in Parliament and taking questions then.
Yeah, so once again, you know, no one in Britain is consulted. Parliament is not even consulted. There's no pretense of even trying to you know, go through the proper channels. He just decides on a whim, you know, this fart who just happened to go to the right school just decides to go and murder people thousands of kilometers away and then call it self-defense. I really don't know what to say. I don't know what to say. You have to keep in mind, Yemen used to be a British colony, right? And Britain had a lot of trouble actually controlling it, which attests and speaks to the determination and drive, the very specific characteristics of the Yemenis. They are really tough and resilient to this day. And just the historical connotation of bombing a former colony And not just that, but this is a country, Yemen is a country that still hasn't, recovered from what Britain and the UK and Canada and a lot of these same countries, that Germany, did arming Saudi Arabia, in its genocide against Yemen. And once again, we go back to international law, to Yemen upholding Article 1, and we go back to the fact that Yemenis are Arabs. Palestinians are Arabs. These are one people. They used to be one people until Britain and France came and carved up the whole region and colonized the whole region and destroyed it. And these effects, you can still see them to this day. You can see them, the globe right behind me. These borders were not drawn by Arabs. They were drawn by white people in the West who live thousands of kilometers away, thieves, colonizers. And so you are saying that this is self-defense. No, what Yemen is doing is self-defense. As I said, this is one people. There is no difference for a Yemeni between themselves and Palestinians. Do you understand? So when Yemen are blockading the Israelis, they are doing that in self-defense. Now, the thing is, I'll show you also David Cameron, who used to be the prime minister. He's now the foreign secretary, and you can listen to his drivel as well. I don't show this to torture you. I show this to be impartial and objective. Every issue I talk about, I always show you what both sides are saying. I don't show you one side. I show you what both sides are saying. We look at what they're saying, and then we come to an informed decision and an informed opinion about these things. This is David Cameron.
Attack, even though you've had warning after warning, ultimately this military action was necessary. I think it was proportional, it was legal, it was absolutely right to do, and I think it sends a very clear message to the Houthis, but also to Iran as well. First of all, let's be clear about this alliance. I mean, there are over 10 countries that have backed this military action. There are 6 countries that are actually directly involved in the military action in one way or another, and then of course it's Britain and America that have actually carried out the strike. These attacks will degrade their capability, that's important, and we'll get the assessments later today about exactly how much of that has been done. But the fact is, since the 19th of November, there have been 26 attacks. We've tried warnings. We've had the UN Security Council resolution. I spoke to the Iranian foreign minister. Warning after warning has been given, and yet the attacks continued. Indeed, one of the most recent ones, in which HMS Diamond, the British ship, was involved, it was a huge number of drones and missiles, one of the biggest attacks to date. This is not acceptable. That's why it was necessary to take this step. What we were doing, warnings, was not working. The number of attacks was increasing. The severity of those attacks was increasing. This escalation has been caused by the Houthis, and this action is in response to that, to send a very clear message that if you act in this way, there aren't just warnings, there are consequences.
I love it. I really love it. So he says this was, as usual, revisionist history. He starts where it suits him. Oh, the Houthis started this. They caused this. No, they didn't. The Israelis, you caused this with the Israelis. You, by defending and arming them, caused this. There were, there should have been a blockade before, but especially after this latest spell or episode of the Nakba, of the genocide against Palestinians, then there was a blockade. It was in response to the slaughter. So, as usual, just like the Israelis, he speaks just like and thinks just like the Israelis, it's not us who started it, it's you who started it. Like, the world began 2 weeks ago or something like that. And there were warnings to you as well, right? There were warnings to the Americans and to the Israelis as well. If you don't stop what you're doing, the blockade will be implemented and it will continue. But of course, this is indicative of again, the double standard. Britain, America, Germany, Australia, all these countries that bombed Yemen, they have the right to sanction other people and punish them in order to change their behavior, such as sanctions on Russia, sanctions on Iran, sanctions on Syria, sanctions on Yemen. Remember, Donald Trump put them on Yemen. And so, it's okay for them to do it, but it's not okay for Yemen to put sanctions on Israel to change the Israelis' behavior. What is this double standard? Don't think for one second that the former were legal. They were illegal, right? The Western sanctions on Russia, on Iran, on Syria, they're illegal sanctions. They're unilateral in most cases, right? The Caesar Act sanctions that were put in place against Syria by Donald Trump and upheld to this day by Joe Biden are unilateral. They're illegal. No one approved these things. The State Department and the Treasury just randomly decided, at the behest of the White House, to do this. And it's just like, screw you. You starve. Well, okay, this goes both ways then. If Israel want to blockade Gaza, Yemen will blockade Israel. Give them a taste of their own medicine. So Oman are the only ones that did not allow military aircraft to use their airspace, because when we talk about Oman and Kuwait, they are in the Gulf, and they are certainly neighbors to all these monarchs, but they have a different foreign policy than Saudi Arabia and so on. And the statement here from the White House, they list all these countries, right? And they say they struck these targets used by Houthi rebels to endanger freedom of navigation in one of the world's most vital waterways. And 2 points here before I continue. They say Houthi rebels. Look, you have to understand something. In Yemen, 80% of the population, they live in areas that are controlled by the Houthis. Why do they live there? They live there because they accept the Houthis as their legitimate government. There is another government, the internationally recognized Yemeni government, which you'll often hear, which are not a real government. And they live in a bunch of hotels in Saudi Arabia and in Riyadh. And Saudi Arabia recently capitulated to the Houthis, after committing genocide against them for years, with Western weapons, with support and logistical help from the West, and had to concede, right? You remember the peace deal that China negotiated and mediated between the Saudis and the Iranians? Immediately, a direct consequence of that was an ending of hostilities, well, sort of, and reconciliation between the Saudis and the Yemenis and the Saudis and the Syrians, okay? It's very good. It's very good. This is China actually doing some good, as opposed to the Americans. So the fact is that Saudi Arabia lost a war already. The West lost a war against Yemen. Despite creating the world's worst humanitarian crisis, they were unable to crush the Yemenis and their spirit. And the Yemenis, as I said, have barely, they're barely reeling or recovering from the last years. And nevertheless, they still go out of their way. Well, not really, because the ships are passing through their waters, not the other way around. But, figuratively speaking, they go out of their way to make sure that they are doing something for the Palestinians, which, is a lot more than can be said for most countries on earth. And that speaks a lot to their character, right? It speaks a lot to who they are and what they are. And a lot of Arab countries would do well to look to them as an example. I want to show you just this before I continue to other points. This is from Glenn Greenwald. He said that while it's true Biden is violating the Constitution by bombing Yemen with no congressional approval, it's also true that it's up to Congress to enforce their powers, which they never do, such as cutting off funds. They just want to posture, but don't actually want this responsibility. This is, very eloquently put and straight to the point. They're just blabbing, and they see, they see this as more of a problem. Like, they're not complaining that, oh, Yemen is a country that we already decimated. Yemen are upholding international law. What the hell are we doing in Yemen? This is on the other side of the planet. We have no business there. They don't care about any of these things. They just want to say, Biden didn't go for approval first. Okay, well then punish him. Cut off his fucking funding. Why don't you just get to the point and do what you're saying you want, which is accountability. No. So, this is, I think it was Cameron just now who mentioned the UN vote, okay, the UN Security Council vote. Now, look, I think what happened here, and think about this, is that there was a vote condemning Yemen. And for some reason, China and Russia did not use their veto powers. Remember, you have 5 permanent members on the UN Security Council and 10 on a rotating basis. So they could sink the resolution if they want to. And they didn't do it. No pun intended, right? Sink. I think the Americans misread the situation. Britain misread the situation. They thought, well, hold on a second. If Russia and China aren't going to, stick their necks out for Yemen, and they're not vetoing this, they're abstaining, then maybe we can just, go ahead and escalate in the region and start bombing the Yemenis. They fell into a trap. They have fallen into a trap. I mean, this goes without saying. That's why I haven't said it thus far. This bombing achieves nothing. This achieves absolutely nothing. They're not going to diminish in any capacity what Yemen are doing. Yemen are, to this minute, continue to fulfill their objectives. The blockade is in effect. Their capabilities have not been hindered. You see all these tunnels that they have in Gaza. If you think that's complex, wait till you see what tunnels the Yemenis have. Wait till you see what fighters they are. Again, not to diminish the Palestinian resistance in any way, but just to underscore the point that the Yemenis are made of steel, and they are not easily swayed. They are not easily frightened. On the contrary, this is a victory for them because they want to be a part of this war, not because they like war, but because they feel bad that Gaza is taking the full brunt, facing the full brunt of this Western military might, or so-called might, shall we call it terror instead, and they are relatively unscathed in this episode, of course, notwithstanding the previous years. So, they're saying at least now we can help in a way and divert attention away from Gaza. And of course, that's the whole point of the blockade, is to make the powers who are that are undertaking this genocide to face consequences. The Yemenis are not people you want to mess with. I really mean this. They are, of course, a member of the Axis of Resistance. When we talk about this this group, right? It's not an official group, but just Iran, Syria, Hamas, Hezbollah, the Popular Mobilization Units, Hashd al-Sha'bi, and Yemen. And when we talk about them, out of all these members, or out of all these actors and non-state actors, the Yemenis are perhaps the most dangerous. Why do I say this? I say this because you cannot gauge what they're going to do. They are unpredictable and they are very resilient, as I said before. They are not, they are not influenced or affected, or they just don't give a rat's ass about Western propaganda. They will not even bother responding to that shit. They just don't care. They have their values, they have their morals, their principles, and they will do whatever it takes to stand up to stand up for those values and defend them. And I really mean this. They are. This is. Let me just show you this march from today. Okay, look at the number of people that have come out to protest. I mean, incalculable numbers, truly. We're talking about millions of people. I mean, this is not even just today. This is not just because, these thugs came and bombed them and they are so outraged that big numbers came out. No, this is almost every single Friday. Like, they come out in these exact same numbers and protest for Palestine. Okay, do you understand? So we're not talking about a group of rebels. The Houthis, they are the legitimate government, the popular government. They represent most Yemenis, and Yemenis are happy with the direction that they are taking. Make no mistake about this. And I'll even show you from the BBC, from Jeremy Bowen, who's one of their veteran combat war correspondents. He wrote an article. Usually he's on camera, but it's very interesting. Look what he said here. He said that the US and British attacks on the Houthis in Yemen are not just, as ministers in London have suggested, about the freedom of navigation and world trade. They are directly linked to events in Gaza and represent an escalation of the crisis gripping the region. And he said here that it's time to stop talking about the risk that the war in Gaza will spread elsewhere in the Middle East. It has already happened. Absolutely. He says down here that the Houthis are also part of the network of allies and proxies, the so-called Axis of Resistance. But he says here that it is best to think of them as allies rather than Tehran's proxy, right? And why is this important that he underscores this? And it's good that he underscores this because it is true. He says, I have spent quite a bit of time with the Houthis in Yemen, and they are people who are highly independently minded. That's very different from what you hear in mainstream media most of the time, that the first sentence is the Iran-backed Houthi rebels. Once again, they're not rebels, they're the legitimate government, and they are Iran-backed, but they are not controlled or run by Iran. Why don't they say the US-backed Israeli regime? You know, the Likud-run health ministry. You see the difference in language. It's you know, they want to get to imply every single time they talk about Hamas, every single time they talk about Hezbollah or the Yemenis, that Iran is running the show. You know, like it's this giant conspiracy. The octopus has its arms stretching out all over the planet, and they are telling people what to do. No, that's complete utter bullshit. The funny thing is that it's the West that control other countries in this exact fashion. It's completely wrong to look at the axis of resistance in this way. And he correctly says here that they are highly independently minded. He says they will relish conflict with the Americans. They want to be part of this war. So he talks here about the you know, ordnance, the weapons that they have. And he says they have anti-ship missiles, ballistic missiles, attack drones, the same sort that Iran supplies to Russia to use against Ukraine. They are well armed. And he says here that you can't compare the arsenal to what the US and UK have, but the threat that they pose is more economical than physical, right? And remember, Yemen are not trying to sink any ships. If they wanted to, they could do it. If they wanted to kill people, they would kill them, but they don't. Look at this video when they took over Galaxy Leader, which is one of the ships that they hijacked and you know, diverted to Hodeidah, right? Look at the treatment.
نحن نرحب بكم عندنا يسيركم من اليمن واهلا وسهلا وانتم ضيوفنا in Yemen and Navy ونعتبركم زي اي واحد من اليمن.
He's saying welcome to Yemen, and we consider every single one of you a Yemeni.
We are considered all the crew as Yemeni people. ولا تعرفون من أي شيء. Don't worry about everything. كل ما تحتاجوه نحن مستعدين. And anything you want, they will bring it. اليمن اعتبروها كبلد من بلادكم. You can consider.
Yeah, he says we'll get you anything you want, and consider Yemen your country. By the way, I just saw breaking news. Right now they're bombing the international airport in Sana'a, in the Yemeni capital. So they're still going. Again, this picture is unconfirmed, so keep that in mind. This is an unconfirmed picture, but they are attacking Yemen. That is confirmed. They are bombing the international airport right now. So, you know, they just keep going with their bullying, their aggression. Really disgusting. Really disgusting. What can you say? Absolutely disgusting. What this comes down to is two things. There's a genocide in Gaza that the West want it to continue. They want to uphold. And the second thing is that they are capitalists, and for them, it's all about their bottom line. It's all about the money. And so by adding shipping time and costs, this is not good for business. It's not good for Israel's international trade, and it's not good for global trade as a whole. Because remember, when ships, Yemen is not banning all ships from passing through the Red Sea. It's saying Israeli linked, bound, or Israeli ships. Now, nevertheless, the companies that insure the shipping companies and freight companies, remember, you know, these two industries are linked. And so when you are sailing up the Red Sea, you know, through the Bab el-Mandeb Strait into the Red Sea and trying to go through the Suez Canal, and you're passing by Yemen, if there's a risk that you're going to be fired at and you're going to drive up the payout from the insurance companies will jack the prices up because they view you as a liability, right? You're bad for their business, and so that cost is then passed on to the freight and the shipping companies, and they don't want to pay it, so they go around Africa instead, around Western Africa. So that's not good for them. And remember, BP, British Petroleum, they have stopped sailing all of their oil tankers up the Red Sea, just, you know, as a matter of precaution. And then when we talk about Maersk and MSC and all these other big shipping companies, the top 5, they have at various points in the last weeks stopped sailing entirely up the Bab el-Mandeb Strait. So it's all about money in the end, right? It's nothing to do with Yemen and freedom of navigation. This is rubbish. This is complete rubbish. And once again, I will point out to you that if we're going to talk about freedom of navigation, the US and the UK are the last countries on earth to open their mouths. I want to remind you that just 2 days ago, Iran took back, they seized one of their own ships that was controlled by the Americans. What happened is that Iran was sending fuel to Venezuela. Remember, Venezuela are suffering from US sanctions. They have a lot of oil, but they can't refine it. So Iran, which is another oil-rich country, and also under sanctions, they decided to exchange gold. So they would give Venezuela fuel in exchange for gold. And they were sending oil tankers across the ocean to Venezuela. And what the US would do is they would come and hijack some of these ships, and they did, and they pirated them. So they literally just, took control of these ships while they were in international waters. They never went near the United States. But they went out of their way to hijack the ships, steal literally 1 million barrels of oil at least, and then sell it off, like pirates. You board a ship, take the cargo and the bounty, and then sell it off like a pirate. It's state piracy without question, in every sense of the term, in every sense of the word. So, the UK also did this with Iran, where they stopped, they hijacked an Iranian ship that was in the Strait of Gibraltar, which is also British. Even though it's in Spain. And the Israelis were also trying to sink Iranian fuel tankers that were taking fuel to Syria and Lebanon, who are also suffering from US sanctions. So again, these were Iranian ships in international waters, and Israel, the United States, and the UK went out of their way to steal the cargo like a bunch of pirates, or to just sink the ships. So they're the last fucking people on this planet to talk about freedom of navigation and international maritime law. And I want to show you just this funny video from David Cameron a few days ago, where it's about Israel cutting off water, and I'll play it to you, and you'll understand the relevance in just a second.
A reply to the chair. You said, and I quote, "One of the things we'd like the Israelis to do is switch the water back on." Now, that says that they turned it off. It says that you recognise they have the power to turn it on. Therefore, isn't turning water off and having the ability to turn it back on but choosing not to, isn't that a breach of international humanitarian law?
It's just something they ought to do, in my view.
No, of course they should do it. Every human being would say you don't cut people's water supply off. But I'm asking you, in your position as Foreign Secretary, around the point of international humanitarian law, if Israel have the power to turn the water back on that they turned off, surely that is a flagrant breach of international humanitarian law.
Well, I'm not a lawyer. My view is they ought to switch it on because
He says, I'm not a lawyer. Oh, okay. Remember, this is this week. The video I just played, it's from this week. He's not a lawyer, he says, okay? Now, this is David Cameron yesterday.
why we're taking on Houthi military targets in Yemen. Freedom of navigation across international shipping lanes in the Red Sea must be protected, and this is why we're taking action. It is necessary, legal, proportionate, and right. The UK, along with the US and other allies, including the United Nations Security Council, have repeatedly made clear that these illegal Houthi attacks are completely unacceptable. There have been warning after warning, but the attacks have continued, including most recently the attack involving our own ship HMS Diamond, which included 18 drones and a number of missiles and was one of the biggest to date. In all, we've seen 26 attacks against ships since the middle of November. The Houthis should be clear that we are serious when we say these actions against UK and other ships are completely unacceptable, and it's right that we've taken this action.
So now he is suddenly an expert on international maritime law and the freedom of navigation, and he speaks like a lawyer. Now he knows what he's talking about. Very impressive. I'm glad he got a degree in such little time. This is what it comes down to. See this? United States are bombing Yemen for Tesla and Volvo to save costs and avoid shipping delays. Absolutely, right? New York Times reporting that they suspended production lines in Europe because of the Red Sea. These are just two companies, right? You don't need to look that far, to dig that far to understand what's going on. This is all about money, and it's all about supporting Israel, and the fact that they are willing to murder people and bomb, you know, civilian infrastructure like the international airport right now as I'm speaking. It shows you who the real terrorists are. Remember that Yemen, the Houthis, the Yemenis, they're in their own country. When they see in front of their eyes Israeli ships passing by and contributing to a genocide, they have every right to stop them, and they have an obligation under international law. Britain and America have no fucking business coming to this region. They have no business. If they don't like the blockade, then they should stop the genocide. It's entirely in their hands. By doing this, what they have done is they've fallen into a trap, because now Yemen can stop all the ships coming through the Red Sea. If they're really worried about money, Yemen can make this hurt a lot more. This is nothing. This is nothing. This was mild, what they have done until now. Yemen can also attack their ships, and they did 2 days ago as a preliminary response to the 10 Yemeni Marines that they killed. Remember, up until that point, Yemen had never attacked any of the U.S. and American military the U.S. and British military ships, even though they could, they easily, and they're well within their rights to perceive that as an aggression. I want you to ask yourself, if Yemen and Iran sent their warships to, off the coast of Virginia or the English Channel, what do you think the reaction would be from the UK and the US? They would consider that a threat, and they would respond. It wouldn't be a threat, because using their own logic, using British and American logic, they stole and attacked Iranian fuel tankers, right? They hijacked and pirated Iranian cargo. So Iran should respond just like Britain and America by bombing the British and the Americans, right? I'm just using Biden and Sunak's own logic. So you see the hypocrisy here is disgusting. It's disgusting. They are the biggest pirates. They are the biggest threat to international law, the biggest threat to maritime law. They love putting sanctions when it suits them. But if you try to do something that is in accordance with international law, that is the same thing, but actually, not just imperialism, but genuinely out of self-defense, you get attacked. Funny. This is not going to end well. I promise you, this is not going to end well. The US and the UK and Israel and everyone is supporting Israel. They are bogged down on 6 fronts, especially the Americans, right? The Americans have these illegal bases in Iraq and Syria. 1 million times the Iraqis have told them, go home to your countries. This is not your country. Get out, go home. They don't listen. And the resistance are attacking their bases in Conoco oil fields in Syria, Al Umar oil fields, Shaddadi. They're attacking them in Iraq, at Erbil, in Ain al-Assad, in the green zone, and telling them, we don't want you here, and we don't want you supporting Israel and its genocide. These attacks will get a lot worse from now on. And once that happens, Hezbollah can also escalate its attacks within reason, because they're not looking for an all-out war. They also have internal. Remember, Hezbollah have to act within the parameters of what they can do also with Lebanese society, right? And Lebanon taken into consideration, not just the Israelis, of course. So my point here is that this will make everything a lot harder for Israel and the United States to get out of afterwards. They're in quicksand, and they're just making this worse and worse and worse. They're basically coming to the Middle East, they're attacking people and giving these people, whether we're talking about Hezbollah or we're talking about Hamas, a legitimate reason to respond, and respond harder every time they come and murder people in the Middle East. And they're well within their rights. You want to fuck around, then you will find out. Let me show you here this this is from Nasrallah, from Hezbollah, the Secretary General. It's from a few days ago.
Of military vehicles and the number of tanks that are being destroyed every day. the psychological situation.
Sorry, sorry, it's the wrong video. I wanted to play another one with Nasrallah. Give me a second. That was for, I was saving that for last.
وأيضا الفضيحة الأمريكية عندما جاء وزير الحرب الأمريكي وزير الدفاع بين هلالين وأعلن من هنا من منطقتنا تحالفا عسكريا بحريا لمواجهة اليمنيين في البحر الأحمر. شوفوا من الفضيحة. طب هذا وزير أمريكي، هذا مش صحفي، مش وزير دولة عالم ثالث، هذا وزير الدولة العظمى مثل ما بيقولوا. شوي طلعت دول ممن سماها قال يا خيي نحن لا بهذا الحلف ولا حدا حكي معنا ولا سمعانين بهالقصة، شو إنه علاقة؟ انسحبوا. دولة واثنين وثلاثة، واضطر يروح يجيب أسماء مثل هاي هلا سنشن منشن مدري شو اسمها، فتشنا عليها بالجوجل طلعت مدري جزيرة بآخر الكرة الأرضية وعدد سكانها يمكن 100,000 نسمة، بس حتى إنه بده يكبر التحالف. اليوم
So he's talking about how pathetic this coalition is. Remember, I listed all the countries, Australia, Germany, Denmark, that are supporting these strikes. But the only ones that are actually dropping bombs are the UK and the US, right? And initially, that's not what this coalition promised to deliver, right? They said that, oh, we've got all these people that are ready to send forces and troops, and they all pulled out one by one. And he's saying that, you know, in the end, they had to go looking for fucking island nations to support them that no one's ever heard of. You see this often in the UN. You know, the United States and Israel will be the only ones to vote against something that every person with common sense would vote for. And then the only ones siding with Israel in the United States are a bunch of, you know, unheard of island nations that have no one living there and are basically controlled by the US and owned by the US. Let me play you another clip here. This is a...
عندما أتحدث عن اليمن يجب أن نضع خطوط حمراء، ثلاث خطوط حمراء سنضعها أو ليعلموا إن ذهبوا أيضا، وهذه يجب أن يفهمها ويعلمها الأمريكان ومن يقف خلف الأمريكان ومن يساند الأمريكان من الحلفاء على الأرض بمقربة اليمن. هنا الموضوع سيكون مختلف تماما. ستنفتح أمامنا خيارات في هذه المعركة وستكون احتمالات مفتوحة على مصراعيها. سيرى الأمريكان أيام قد لا ينساها عبر التاريخ، وستكون هنالك ردود.
بماذا ستوعدونهم يعني؟
ستكون كوابيس تلاحق الأمريكان على مدى الدهر. هذا أمر لا يمكن التهاون به، ولا يمكن أن ننظر له بنظرية أو بنظرة ممكن أن تكون هنا وهنالك أو بحسابات. أمام اليمن لا حسابات. أي اعتداء على اليمن كل الحسابات والاعتبارات تكون جانب.
Make no mistake, we are living in very, very interesting times. Very interesting times. What you are seeing right now in the Arab world is something that generations have dreamed of, which is kicking these colonizers the hell out. Remember, a lot of these groups are popular and they're legitimate, but they're not state actors. They're not beholden to the same rules that state actors are. And again, I mean this in no negative way. On the contrary, it's actually a net plus for them because it allows them to operate with different parameters. Not illegal or you know or evil or shady parameters by any means, you know, by any stretch of the imagination. But the point is that, you know, we are talking about groups like the Hashd al-Sha'bi in Iraq, like Hezbollah, like Hamas, that are spread out across the region. They're in their, you know, in their homes, and they are ready to defend one another. And that is what you're seeing. It's a six-front war. And if you're already fighting on two fronts, you are screwed. You're screwed. If you're fighting on six, it's game over. But to go and make one of the six fronts even worse, you have a death wish. This is a suicide mission. You have a death wish. You want to be screwed. I don't know what to say. These are not empty words. They're the rockets, the drones that are being fired every day at the American bases in Iraq and Syria are real. They are real. I'm sure the occupiers and invaders that inhabit these bases can tell you all about their TBUs, their traumatic brain injuries, TBIs, excuse me, and later on, again, the anti-ship ballistic missiles that Yemen are firing. No one has ever used these before in this way. This is a new way of attacking vessels from land, right? We're not talking about giant guns and cannons, that are in a fortress at the coast. We're talking about something entirely different. You have 30 seconds to react before this thing hits you. And this is a military ship we're talking about, right? Like if you're on a destroyer or an aircraft carrier, you have 30 seconds to react before you're done. You may shoot them down 20 times, 30 times. What about the 31st time? Iraq are firing drones all the way from Iraq to the Red Sea. They're striking Israeli targets in the Red Sea. Do you understand what that means? They're going past Syria. I mean, look, let me pull up the map for you. These are things that have never been heard of. This is the first time that this has ever happened in the last 2 weeks. Look, let me go on Google Maps and we'll measure the distance together, okay? Let's see how many kilometers we're talking about exactly. And then you tell me who should be afraid of whom, okay? Look. Okay? Now, when we talk about the resistance, they're usually, we could say Abu Kamal is a safe, a safe starting point. Let's just pick Abu Kamal, okay? Let's say from here all the way down to the Red Sea, there's Eliyat, okay? I'll start right at the beginning to be conservative. It's almost 1,000 kilometers, 700 kilometers. That is no joke. The Yemenis also are hitting Eliyat, and I know at least one occasion where they actually hit it, but the Israelis tried to downplay it because of how embarrassing it is. And what's disgusting is that the Saudis are helping the Israelis shoot these things down before they get there. Can you imagine this? An Arab country helping the Israelis. How disgusting. It's not that people in Saudi Arabia want this. It's that you have a few bought stooges running the country at the top, and they are the stooges and they are running the country because they defend Israel and U.S. interests, Israeli and U.S. interests. Anyway, let's measure, okay? Let me go to the nearest point again so I can be as conservative as possible. Okay, this is the furthest point in. And then we'll go up here again to Eliyat. It's called Mrashrash. It used to be called before the Israelis took it over. 1,500 kilometers. Okay, that's how far the Yemeni drones and missiles can go. Remember, we're talking about people that resisted years of starvation, fuel embargoes, and bombings with hundreds of billions of dollars of gear that the Saudis bought from the Americans and the British and the Germans and the Italians and the Australians and the Canadians. Do you really think they're going to back down because they bombed Sana'a International Airport and they killed 10 Yemeni Marines? They will never back down. You could nuke Yemen and they would come back from the dead and still beat America. That's how determined the Yemenis are. Okay, let me show you who you are messing with.
That's why we would say to them, whatever they do, whatever they among with them, we don't fucking give a shit to them, and we don't care, and they will never scare us, they will never stop us. We are coming from Yemen, from Sana'a to Palestine very soon, inshallah, because we are with our leader, Sayyid Abdul Malik Badruddin al-Houthi, and we know that we are in the right side, so no one can stop us. We know our way, we know that we are in the right side, so we're gonna come to the White House and we will change it from the White House to the Black House and Dirty House. Just wait for us, and that's it.
I love the Yemenis, I really do. I love the Yemenis. Let me show you another thing. This is one of my favorite dances.
لا لا تقل ما لها بال خرجة يا لها كان الذي صار ما يخطر على بالها لا لا تقل ما لها بال على خدجة قالها كمملكة صادم يخطر على بالها
Yeah. They Here's another one. This is a Yemeni wedding. Yeah, العرس في اليمن. So one of you said in the comments that they are real dancing warriors, unlike the Israelis on TikTok. Oh yes, absolutely. And you see how they're waving the Palestinian flags. Again, you can't mess with them. You really can't mess with them. This is a big mistake. The Yemenis are, they don't. When Nasrallah speaks, he will come, and he's like a geopolitical, master. I mean, I truly mean this. He is like an expert mathematician when it comes to politics. Do you understand? Everything is calculated. He always talks about equations. There is a balance that he maintains. Right now, the Lebanese front, they're blinding and Israel's surveillance post. They're blinding the Israelis, but they haven't escalated and turned it into a war. This is smart. Nasrallah knows what he's doing. That's why the Israelis have evacuated hundreds of thousands of settlers in the north. They are scared shitless of Nasrallah and Hezbollah. Make no mistake, they won't admit it, but this is the truth. And I showed you the article in Haaretz where they said that Hezbollah are using ATGMs in unpredictable ways, in unprecedented ways. The thing is, when it comes to the Yemenis, and I'm not saying this that they're any less effective or that they don't achieve the same results, but it's just they don't bother with trying to maintain a balance. They have already suffered this decimation by the West. In Lebanon, it's a different situation. You have it's very divided, very sectarian society. The Christians there, the Kata'ib, they collaborated with Israel, but they have immunity because after the civil war there was, it's a very complex situation. Most people support Hezbollah, but there is a sizable chunk that don't, and they try to blame Hezbollah for everything and say Hezbollah are dragging them into a war. So there's all this headache and noise that has to be taken into consideration. At the end of the day, Hezbollah, without Hezbollah, Lebanon would still be occupied, so they should shut their mouths, the ones that are complaining. But when we talk about Yemen, again, Yemen, there's nothing to take into consideration. It's just fuck you and fuck you again. If you want to screw with us, we will teach you a lesson. This is the difference. So you can't, they are certainly part of the axis of resistance and so on, but they have a distinct characteristic about them and an air about them. Let me show you something here which really made me laugh. This blundering oaf. Keep in mind, this woman is in Congress. She's an elected congressperson. What does she say? She says, after Biden ordered U.S. airstrikes in Yemen, millions filled the streets of Yemen in anger. And then she says, Speaker Mike Johnson better make HR 2 the most important part of his talks because these people can enter our wide open border, and many already have. Really? I wasn't aware that there are Yemenis pouring into the United States. I didn't know that the United States is in the Red Sea. God, I mean, how is this human being in Congress and she doesn't know basic geography? I really should not have to pull up the world map, but Yemen is down here and the United States is over there. How exactly are Yemenis going into your border? Who gives a shit about your border? You're the one going to the Yemenis' border and violating their airspace and their land and their sovereignty and bombing them. No one gives a shit about you and your border. I mean, the stupidity of I don't even know what to say. I'm speechless. Really, ignorance on another level. Truly, ignorance on another level. By the way, I forgot to show you one more dance. This was this is on top of the Galaxy Leader when they captured it. there was something on LBC. Listen to this.
Do you believe that the Houthis are right to be doing what they're doing in the name of preventing what you say is a genocide in Gaza?
Well, I don't think it's really the British state's business to lecture the Houthis. Yemen, as perhaps your listeners will know, was a British colony. The British had to be driven out of there. The British have been backing a 8-year war by the Saudis against Yemen, which has just now resulted in a truce. I really don't think that it's the business of this country to go back to bomb a former colony after it's already been paying for a war against it for 8 years. Nobody in the Middle East thinks that that is a remotely justifiable situation.
Done to protect ships, done to protect international trade.
No, what the Houthis have said is that they aren't targeting international trade, they're targeting a ship.
See, immediately the capitalist mindset, but the trade, like a robot. Not, but the human beings in Gaza. No, the trade.
So they're going to Israel because
that's not true. They haven't targeted just ships that have been. Well, because you can see the ships that they've been targeting. They haven't just targeted ships that are just going to Israel. They've been targeting a whole. Excuse me, Yusri. They've been targeting a wide range of ships, actually, under flags of countries that they believe are supportive of Israel. So I have to ask you.
Yes, that's the point. What is the difference? Yeah, Israeli linked, Israeli bound, and Israeli ships. Congratulations. You have contradicted yourself.
Again, do you think... Hang on a sec, Mr. Rees, let me ask the question. Do you think what the Houthis are doing is right?
In trying to employ economic sanctions of the kind that this country employs against Iran or Russia when it wants to alter that state's behaviour, yes, I do believe that they're justified in doing that, because they're trying to stop a genocide. You keep avoiding this question. You keep avoiding the fact that there are 23,000 dead people in Gaza, and that is at the centre of this. And all this business about trade, if people were as concerned about the loss of life as they are about the loss of trade, perhaps we'd be further forward in this debate.
He's like, quick, cut him off. Yep. Once again, I pulled up the map at the beginning to show you, but this is a video that I made, part 2, and you can see all of these vital straits and canals, right? I mean, all of the most important resources, notwithstanding Africa, of course, but particularly oil, black gold, and the trade routes. You know, the Silk Road used to pass all the way through, from China through Asia, going to Syria, and then the crossroads between Africa, Asia, and Europe. And of course, the Strait of Gibraltar, which is in Morocco, the Suez Canal, which is in Egypt, the Bab el-Mandeb Strait, which is in Yemen, and the Strait of Hormuz, which is between Iran and Oman. These are the most important straits in the world, and they are crucial to global trade and have been for hundreds of years. And there's a reason that they keep trying to control this region. Okay, it's not just about Israel. Israel is one part of the equation. It's one of the motivations. The genocide, they want it to continue. That's why they're bombing Yemen. But again, right opposite Yemen, you've had U.S. troops in Somalia, in Djibouti, in the Horn of Africa, on this exact same strait, on the Bab el-Mandeb Strait, for decades, right? Why? Because it's the most important shipping lane on the planet. And that's why they also tried to take care of Yemen. Remember, when you look at all these countries that have been attacked in the last decades with sanctions or with wars or with invasions, they're countries that the West were unable to control. Iraq, Libya, Syria, Yemen, Palestine, Lebanon. They've had trouble taming, so to speak, and getting these countries to play ball. That's why you never see an Arab Spring in Saudi Arabia, and you never see any problems with Saudi Arabia, no sanctions, no bad press coverage, nothing. Because Saudi Arabia, again, a lot of these countries, they're fake, like Israel. They were just made up by the British and the French in 1916 with Sykes-Picot, and then afterwards. So, they were made up, and then they put certain families in charge, but like a mafia, a crime family, truly, because this crime family they know they could rely on them to serve their interests. That's why you have all these bases in Saudi Arabia, in Qatar and in the Gulf, not everywhere, of course, right? But mainly in these areas, in these countries. And these countries then open up their airspace. So not only are they hosting these kinds of bases, but opening up their airspace on top of it, like they are today, just now and last night, for Americans to go and kill other Arabs. Now, you tell me, can you consider these leaders Arabs? No, absolutely not. They're not Arabs. They look Arab. They dress like Arabs. They speak Arabic. They're not Arabs. Let me play you this clip from my good friend, Professor Marandi.
In Yemen, what they've been doing is that they've been blocking ships that go to Israel because
this is from a few days ago, just so you know.
The Israelis are committing genocide. And Hezbollah is fighting Israel in the north to stop the genocide. Everyone wants a ceasefire, the end of killing, but the Israelis are, despite the fact that they've been defeated on the ground, but they continue to seek revenge by murdering innocent Palestinians in Gaza. And it's the responsibility of the Western media to open their eyes and tell the truth to the public that a genocide is taking place, a Holocaust is taking place in front of our eyes.
What do you think will happen as a result of this latest explosion in Iran?
Well, Netanyahu definitely wants an escalation. So we can interpret this as possibly an attempt by Netanyahu to expand the war, especially when we put it alongside the bombing of Damascus and the assassination of an Iranian general who was supporting Hamas, and Hamas, the terrorist attack in Beirut against senior Hamas officials. But there's a problem here, because on the one hand, the Iranians, Hezbollah, Yemen, the Palestinians all want a ceasefire for humanitarian reasons, but on the other hand, these atrocities cannot go unanswered. So I assume that there will be retaliation against Israel, but within the context to keep the conflict manageable and to continue to push for a ceasefire. In fact, many believe that the assassination, the terror attack on the Hamas leader yesterday in Beirut was to prevent negotiations for a ceasefire and for prisoners to be exchanged, because he was in charge of that file. Again, that points fingers to Netanyahu and his team, who's desperate to remain in power so that he doesn't face criminal charges.
You know, this bombing of the Sana'a airport, it reminds me of how the Israelis also bomb the it has Israel written all over it, and how they bomb the Aleppo International Airport and the Damascus International Airport almost every couple of weeks. They're a bit busy now with Gaza, so it's been a bit less regular. But this is, I talked about this again in the video, why they take out this infrastructure, because especially with the ports, they want to control trade, right? And you can't have people like the Houthis or just Yemen. Again, this is not just the Houthis, it's the Yemenis. With an independent foreign policy, because it's bad for business, right? Anytime they like, they can give you consequences. Yes, they're not used to consequences or accountability in the West, in Israel. They want to, have it their way all the time, 24/7, and get away with murder. And Yemen are saying, no, you will not get away with murder. So, it's terrorism. It's terrorism by another name. They're thugs. They're murderers. They're thugs and murderers, and they have no business being in this region. They should go home before they get hurt. I'm just saying, I don't want. It's like the mob. I don't want anyone to have any accidents. Let me show you this clip from. I'll get to that in a second. By the way, this is Trump reacting to last night. God.
Crooked Joe Biden is not only dumb and incompetent. I believe that he has gone mad, a stark raving lunatic, with his horrible and country-threatening environmental open borders and DOJ, FBI weaponization policies. He is a mental catastrophe that is leading our country to hell, will end up in World War III because of this man, and for no reason whatsoever. Thank you. Crooked Joe Biden is not only dumb and
I mean, he's not wrong about Joe Biden being dangerous and you know, mad, but so is Trump. He's just as much a turd as Biden. Make no mistake. Make no mistake. You know, here, this is another video of what you're dealing with the Yemenis.
والله يا امريكا واسرائيل لا عدل ما ناخذكم مثلنا ها ابشري يا غزه قادمون يا اقصى قادمون يا اقصى الله اكبر الموت يا امريكا الموت في اسرائيل اللعنه على اليهود المسجد لبيك يا اقصى لبيك يا اقصى لبيك يا اقصى.
They're not afraid of anything. This is a clip now from was it BBC Arabic? I think it was BBC Arabic or yeah. Or Sky Arabic. I can't see, but it was an excellent interview. I think it was BBC. Listen to what this guy from Yemen said.
هل الاستخبارات الإيرانية تمدكم بهذه المعلومات؟
لا أعلم بذلك.
ولكن ما علاقتكم أنتم بما يحدث هناك؟ يعني أنتم على بعد أميال وأميال.
يعني أما بالنسبة لبايدن كان يعني هو جار نتنياهو يسكنون في شقة واحدة، والرئيس الفرنسي أيضا يسكن في نفس الطابق، والرئيس الوزراء البريطاني يسكن في نفس العمارة، أم أن بينهم وبين الكيان المحتل آلاف الأميال؟
أجب على هذا السؤال. ما الذي حققه الحوثيون من كل ضرباتهم حتى الآن لربما 23 استهدافا؟ لم يحقق أي شيء وكأنها جعجعة بلا طحين.
إذا فلماذا تدعي أمريكا إلى تحالف ضدنا ما دام لا يحقق أي شيء؟
لم تحققوا أي أضرار لإسرائيل، لم يصبها أي نوع من أنواع الضرر، إذن هي جعجعة بلا طحين.
يعني على أي معلومات تستندين في أنه لم يصبها أي ضرر، وهم يشبه شلل تام للموانع المحتلة في الأراضي الفلسطينية. أنت التي تجاجعين بأسئلتك بلا طحين. المفترض أن تعلمي بأن ما نقوم به هو دور مؤثر.
أنكم في الواقع إنما ترغبون في إحياء شعبيتكم الضعيفة في الداخل اليمني.
من يقول بأننا نريد من أجل شعبيتنا فليتفضل هو ليعزز شعبيته. من يتحدث بأنه لا توجد لدينا شرعية، لو كانت لا توجد لدينا شرعية لما استطعنا أن نواجه 17 دولة بما فيهم بريطانيا وأمريكا والسعودية والإمارات. لا زالت هذه النغمة لدى BBC من 2015 وإلى اليوم، وهم يتحدثون بأنه لا يوجد لدينا شعبية. الشعب اليمني بأسره يقف معنا في هذه القضية، والشعب اليمني بأسره يقف معنا ضد العدوان.
هل أنتم قادرون على مجابهة رد إسرائيلي عنيف محتمل؟
اليد الإسرائيلية هي تصول في رؤوس إعلاميكم في BBC التي تجعل من إسرائيل بعبع كبير وأنها الجيش الذي لا يظهر.
بدون شك ألم يتم اغتيال رضي موسوي وصالح العروري؟
بالتأكيد، لكن لا يعني أن اغتيالهم أنها انتهت المقاومة، ولا يعني أن اغتيالهم أنها انتصار لإسرائيل، لأن الاغتيالات ليست دليل الشجاعة ولا دليل الإقدام، إنما دليل الجبن. أنت تعرفي بأنك لا تستطيع أن تقفي إلى جانب القضية الفلسطينية ولا تتحدثي بحرية عن الجانب الفلسطيني.
الحوثيون لم ينفوا
الآن داخل بريطانيا معروف
مسألة الدعم الإيراني.
من يتحدث أو يقف ويدعم الجانب الفلسطيني يتم شطبه، يعني قد تلغى وظيفتك.
That was scathing. That was truly scathing. And one of you said she gives off strong Karen vibes. I agree. Oh man. You know, what they're doing effectively by attacking Yemen is because she talked about legitimacy. They're without a shadow of a doubt boosting their image, because you have to consider Hamas after October 7th and 2021. You know, by defending Al-Aqsa, their popularity has shot up, not just in Palestine, but across the Arab and the Muslim world, because they are correctly seen as the only ones that are standing up to Israel. There's a bully and they're standing up to the bully. And, you know, when it comes to the resistance axis, the second most popular force in the resistance axis, it's the Houthis. right? Especially if we're talking about Arab world, then we have to put Iran. We have to exclude Iran because it's Muslim but not Arab. It's without shadow of a doubt the Houthis. Yes, Hezbollah and Syria and the PMU, they're also very popular. But this blockade has boosted the Houthis' popularity by so much, right? Not the legitimacy; they already have legitimacy. I'm saying the popularity. So once again, inside the Arab world and the Muslim world, this attack on Yemen, they're shooting themselves in the foot. They're just showing even more. Yes, we are barbaric. We don't care about international law. We support Israel's genocide. We will kill more Arabs. We are arrogant. We are stupid. We don't have any sense of what our objectives are. There is no tactical value to this. It's just dropping bombs like a bunch of cowboys and killing Arabs for no reason. Okay, have it your way. You reap what you sow. Yemen have not even begun to respond. They haven't even begun to respond, really. I want to show you some clips of give me just a second, okay, to put this up on the screen. And I want to say thank you to all of you who have sent in donations. Thank you for supporting my work. We've got a donation here on PayPal. This is from, one second. It's from Tracy. It says, thank you, brother, for shining your light on the hearing at the ICJ. May justice prevail. Thank you. I appreciate it. And thank you to all of you who've sent in donations on Rumble and who've joined on Patreon. Hopefully we can get some more of you to join so I can play a crab dance. Let me scroll up and see what we've got on Rumble. It's not loading for me. I think it's stuck, so you'll have to bear with me until it works. Yeah, Gold Alchemist, you said that apparently Yemen capital is being bombed right now. Yeah, that I saw it somewhere else, but thank you for sending it nevertheless. And Tanky Characteristics says, well said, the US military functions as an extension of US corporations. This is the core definition of fascism. Absolutely. Ron Burgundy says, sorry, having Rumble trouble. Hope you get this question. Do you think the Axis will attack a US-UK battleship? And if they sink one, how would this play out? The US would have excuse to go full retard. They already have attacked a US ship. This was just 2 days ago, right? So this was in retaliation to the 10 Yemeni Marines that were killed on the 31st of December. So, yeah, I mean, the fact that this shows you Yemen do not care. They're not afraid whatsoever. And they sent a swarm of drones and they used anti-ship ballistic missiles. And again, don't think that this is like, it's something that the navies, the Royal Navy and the US Navy take lightly. Like I said, these anti-ship ballistic missiles are something relatively new. You only have so many seconds to react before you're hit by one. And it doesn't necessarily mean that it would sink a ship, but you don't want to be hit by one. The Yemenis have been pacing themselves and, really holding back when firing on these commercial ships. If they wanted to sink a commercial ship, okay, not a military one, but a commercial ship, they could do it. And if they wanted to sink a military ship, they could also do that. Their goal is not to escalate. It's just to enforce the blockade. And they have been able to do that meticulously without killing a single person or sinking a single ship. They have achieved the goal, which is to dissuade cargo traffic and maritime traffic going past the Bab el-Mandeb Strait and increase shipping costs and time, and basically make life hell, figuratively speaking, of course, financially, for the Western corporations that are doing business with Israel and sustaining the genocide. They have achieved this objective. They have been achieving it for weeks and continue to achieve that objective. The fact that the US and the UK are bombing Yemen is not going to change the fact that the shipping costs are just, the insurance costs make the shipping costs too high and too bad for business to resume, business as usual. And good, it should be that way. This is nothing. Even if it costs them billions, what are billions of dollars compared to the 23,000 people that have been killed? You can never get these people back. So good, let them suffer. They want to drop 2,000, they want to fire 2,000-pound bombs at Palestinians, then Yemen will fire missiles at their ships. It's not even close to being a taste of their own medicine. It's a fart. Like I said, no one has been killed. This is not hurting anyone physically. Unlike what the Israelis and the Americans and the British are doing, which is murder, which is genocide. So before I continue, once again, I'll just remind you guys, please, that the YouTube channel has been demonetized. They punished me by deleting my reporting. If you can spare a few bucks or a few pounds or a few euros, please consider donating on PayPal. You can send me a question or comment. And if you want to donate monthly, you can do it on Patreon. And it can be whatever amount you like, a few euros or a few pounds or a few dollars every month. Let me show you these clips that I've collected and collated for you. So I wanted to show you these videos that are coming out of Gaza because these are, just as relevant as any other day. But today, Israel was saying that, they do everything they can not to harm civilians, as they're doing everything they can to harm civilians and slaughter them. And I just want to show you the contrast between what came out of the Israeli lawyers' mouths and what the Israeli occupation forces are actually doing in Gaza. See for yourselves.
Parents carry their bloodied children to hospital. The Al-Aqsa Martyrs Hospital in central Gaza is overwhelmed after Israeli forces bomb the Deir al-Bala neighborhood. There are not enough beds, and many patients are left lying on the floor. The Ministry of Health in Gaza says most of those killed, over 200 since Friday, are women and children. On the steps of the Nasser hospital, bereaved relatives wait to bury their dead, as Han Yunis wasn't spared either. The UN has said that the Gaza Strip is the most dangerous place in the world to be a child. And without a ceasefire, more children will die. Kamil Nedelek, Al Jazeera.
هذه بنتي ممثل في الدفاع المدني ومقدم خدمات ل90 يوم من قلة الإمكانيات والخطورة اللي بتداهمنا كل يوم في ال90 يوم. بنتي مش عارفة أطلعها إلى 25 يوم تحت الأنقاض. هذه بنتي تتجاوز 7 شهور 7 شهور لا تتجاوز، وقاعد بشتغل بإيدي بأظافري عشان أطلع.
I don't think you heard me. I was saying that to call it a genocide is an understatement, but this guy in particular, he's saying that he's been trying to dig his daughter out of the rubble for 25 days.
بنتي مش عارفة أطلعها إلى 25 يوم تحت الأنقاض. هذه بنتي لا تتجاوز 7 شهور 7 شهور لا تتجاوز، وقاعد بشتغل بإيدي بأظافري عشان أطلع بنتي اللي إلها 25 يوم تحت الأنقاض. أنا بطلع فيها قاعد تحت الأنقاض بعد 25 يوم. العالم وين؟ الأمم المتحدة وين؟ الدوليين والعالم أنا هو بنك أهداف بتدفن، هو بنك أهداف لطفلي 25 يوم. أبوها بيشتغل مقدم خدمة مش عارف يطلعها بعد 25 يوم. بحاول يطلع بنته أشلاء ومقطعة، الراس لحال والإيد لحال. 25 يوم من أصل قديش 28 جثة في هذا المكان 28 جثة كفي.
He's saying, you know, where is the world? Where's the United Nations? And he was talking about how, you know, you basically find people in pieces, you know, like a head, an arm, a limb. But it's not genocide, remember. Here's a video of a Palestinian woman holding a white flag, and she's walking with a child, and you see where my mouse is down there? Look what happens next. So actually, no, she's holding her child's hand, and the child is waving a white flag. Down there. So they just like executed her. They just shot her dead for no reason. Here's another child in a Gaza hospital. Her face is literally peeling off, and these fucking Zionist pieces of shit have the nerve to go in front of the world court and say that they do everything to protect civilians. Motherfuck Israel. Motherfuck them. They are the worst murderers and thieves and liars on the planet. No one has ever been lower than Israel in the history of humankind. No one. No one. Here's another video. This is from this is a missile that went into a family's home, but it failed to detonate. Thankfully.
هذه خفيفة استهدفت هذا البيت. هذا يا إلهي يا الله. خلاص 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 راح الخوف كله. خلاص يا عم خلاص خلاص. معلش يا حجة قوي حالك يا حجة. ايش فيك؟ انت قوية يا حجة قوية قوية قوية. قول يا رب. ايوه ايوه احنا عايزين دعواتك. طيب ايوه يا رب يا حجة يا رب. ايش فيك؟ ايش فيك؟ خلاص هي راحت القذيفة وكل شيء تمام. خلاص هاي طلع هذا كيف جدع بعيد.
There's another video. I thought I'd put it up here. It's give me a second to I want to show this one now. Give me a second. So again, I have to warn you because this one's very graphic, but it's basically a child who is picking up body parts and putting them in a bag. So again, if you're squeamish, don't watch.
This kid is 13 years old, 12 years old. He's removing human flesh after the Israeli strike by his hands, like he's supposed to do this.
So again, these videos are all from the past week. Okay, I've been putting them together to show them to you. This is from the 6th of January, another massacre that the Israelis carried out.
طول الجثث شارع يمال أطفال أطفال يا أخوان.
The person was saying, you know, children everywhere. This next video is not from Gaza. It's from Ramallah. Okay, so it's from the West Bank, 5th of January, and I want to show you again how this is not just behavior that the Israelis undertake in Gaza. This is all across the board against Palestinians, where there's no Hamas. So again, you can see this boy or this man just, you know, randomly shot. He's literally just standing and they execute him. See, and they start shooting. The other one behind who's trying to help. And they just leave them there to die, you know? And if an ambulance comes, they will block the ambulance as usual, you know. Here's another video from the West Bank. This is from 3 days ago, from the 8th of January, I believe. So they shot a Palestinian boy or a man, I don't know, and then they ran his body over with the army truck. Again, this is in the West Bank. Now this is back to Gaza. So like many people, you know, she has to bury her family. It's a sibling, and she can't do it. Here's another video from Gaza. You can listen to what this woman says happened to her and her family.
دخلوا علينا اليهود أول ما دخلوا أخذوا الشباب شلعوهم كلهم ملبوس ولا حاجة. دخلوا علينا اليهود أول ما دخلوا أخذوا الشباب شلعوهم كلهم ملبوس ولا حاجة عليهم. بعدين أخذوهم في مكان شبحوهم ذبحوهم من القتل. بعدين أخذوا النتاويل بنت عمرها 14 سنة بنتي شلحوها واخذوا منها 100 مليون.
شلحوها كل أواعيها؟
كل أواعيها شلحوها، أخذوا منها 100 مليون، وأخذوا منها الذهب أمانات لأختي، أخذوا منا جوالاتنا، أخذوا الأولاد الصغار فتشوهم كلهم بلطيس، عملوا عملهم فينا، رمونا في الأرض وبالآخر بالطاق بفلوسنا وحرقوا كل أماكن اليهود إجوا عملوا عملهم فينا، ما خلوش حدا.
ذهبكم سرقوه فلوس
أواعينا الداخلية قدامنا
حرقوا أواعيكم الداخلية
قدام عينينا، ما خلوش بنات وولاد هايتهم قاعدين هنا في الشارع ولا حاجة، لا شادر ولا أواعي ولا أي شيء.
وبعد هيك خلوهم يمشوا بدون أواعيهم، ما رجعوا لكم الأواعي؟
يلا اطلعوا يا حيوانات، ولا واحد فيكم يقرأ. يلا روحوا هناك، قالوا لنا نروحوا على الانصراف، قالوا لنا لا، اللي بده يروح على الموت يروح على الانصراف، روحوا على الجنوب، اللي بده يروح على الموت يروح هناك.
وفي البرد هذا خلوا الأطفال يمشوا من غير ملابسهم؟
بنقول لهم اعطونا بس أي مبلغ من المصاري اللي أخذتوه. نو ماني، معناش في المشمش، راحوا المصاري، روحوا مشي يا حيوانات، حتى لم يسلم بالطاق.
حسبي الله ونعم الوكيل.
I can't really say much because I don't know what to say. Here, more prisoner abuse. So what they're doing is as you can see, they've stripped these men. Many of them look like boys, and honestly, their sex is irrelevant. They've stripped these people, put them in stress positions. It's relatively cold in Gaza right now, and they're making them insult Hamas. Okay, so you can hear them say Yahya Sinwar, who's the head of Hamas. So this is degrading. It's not just torture; it's also degrading treatment, which is a war crime. Degrading and inhumane treatment. Putting an Israeli flag on a prisoner, making them say something, filming them. It's multiple war crimes actually. And from what I could gather, because I don't know what the Israeli on the speakerphone said in the seconds before they started filming. Isn't it lovely? The Israelis, they willingly film their war crimes for us. They have no shame. But he's translating in Arabic, and he says al-sakat, which means could mean shut up, or it could mean also quietly. So I think they're telling him to insult Hamas, but to do it relatively quietly, right? Just like a group thing. All of you start insulting Yahya Sinwar, and start doing it. I mean, it's insane. It's like the guy filming this is just like walking around like parading. Look at how it's being filmed. Like a movie or something. He's. Once again, the Israelis will say, oh, well, they were, members of Hamas. Okay, why are they naked? What does them being in Hamas have to do with them being naked? Why are they half of them boys? Look right there. Is that not a boy? That's a child. What are these boys doing here? They're also Hamas? Look at the shoes, the size of the shoe. That's a boy's shoe. Again, you shouldn't take anything the Israelis say seriously. Every single word that comes out of an Israeli's mouth is a lie until proven otherwise. This is how they do. They lie all the time about anything and everything. You saw the hospital lies. You saw the lies about October 7th. It's so many lies. Who can even deal with all this shit? So, this is so disgusting, really. It's not even the first time. They have like a place in Gaza where they go and torture people. 972 magazine did a piece on this. So we are not even seeing all of it. It's just these are fragments, and it's already appalling. They want to say there's no genocide. Okay, I don't care. You can call it Persian rug or falafel or salad. I don't give a shit. This is wrong. this is wrong. There's all sorts of deviant, evil behavior committed by the Israelis in Gaza, and it has to stop. You can call it whatever you like. I don't care. Here's another self-incriminating TikTok. I really Israelis are happy to film their own crimes. So this guy burns down a Palestinian house and then makes a meme out of it that, you know, like he's writing here on TikTok like not to throw, you know, lit cigarettes around because it's a hazard. And he's making a joke because he's just burnt down a house. Take a look. I mean, what do you think would happen if someone, you know, burnt down a Jewish family's home and then made a meme out of it? What do you think the reaction would be in the Western media, and from, you know, Israelis? And what do you think? They would just, you know, they wouldn't talk about it or shrug it off, or they would start, you know, screaming bloody murder. So you see that there's stinking, I mean, to high heavens, hypocrisy and double standards and just evil behavior. I'm, you know, there are not enough words to qualify and quantify what the Israelis are doing. It's decadent, you know, behavior on a never seen before scale, because even, you know, as many atrocities, you know, as many atrocities as have been committed in history, they've never been filmed and recorded in such a way and so, you know, flagrantly by the people committing them. It just hasn't happened, you know. You can say, oh, it's because of there was no technology back then. I really don't care. The fact is, it's a precedent. This is a precedent that's being set, and it's something that's never been done before. And by its nature, it's unprecedented. Do you understand? So who knows who's going to copy this behavior in the future? But you know, regardless of whether people in the future copy this in other places, the fact is the Israelis are doing something that no you know, entity has ever done before. It's murder, torture, abuse, violence, and celebration of that violence. No one in history has ever committed before. This is a fact. And I mean, these are 10 videos. This is nothing. This is nothing. I can find you another 10 right now. There are hundreds, there are thousands, tens of thousands of videos just like this. Pick anyone you want. Somebody being shot while they're standing in the West Bank, I'll find you 20, 30 of them. You want a child, you know, with half their face blown off in the hospital, I'll find you 100 videos like that. An Israeli soldier, you know, making fun of a crime they've just committed, I'll find you 200 like that. This is nothing special. They're trying to normalize this kind of shit. And it's because of Yemen, it's because of South Africa, it's because of Hamas that this shit will never be normalized, and it cannot be normalized. Hamas, Hezbollah, Syria, Iran, Yemen, South Africa, these are the only, you know, the only braces and brackets that are holding humanity up. Without them, we are left with this, because who else is going to object to this behavior, whether it's legally, militarily, or politically? No one will be left to object. Look at the rest of the world. They're doing nothing. They're hopeless. They're decadent. By saying nothing, they are a part of this. Do you understand? And then also by, of course, you know, Britain and America participating in it is even worse. But you know, what would be left? Who is going to say, stop, this is wrong? Paraguay? Yes, some of the Latin American and Central American countries, they have done very well and cut ties with the Israelis. I'm not going to fault them at all. You know, Venezuela, Bolivia, and Chile and Colombia, and recall their ambassadors is great. But and what they're doing is good. But what about the rest of them in that continent? What are they doing? Many of them are, you know, pressured by the U.S. They can't even open their mouths if they want to. You know, a lot of countries are held hostage. I really have to ask myself, where are Russia and China? They're not doing anywhere near enough, and they have to be criticized for this. What are they doing? Maybe they think that, you know, because they're also targets of the West, that they better be quiet and let this play out, because, you know, they don't want the Eye of Mordor to start focusing, the Eye of Sauron to start focusing on them again, which I can understand. But this is so bad, it's on such a horrific scale that they have to do something. I don't know, what maybe they're doing something behind the scenes. But a lot of the weaponry that Yemen are getting is Iranian, it's not Russian. I don't know. But, you know, the point is that they could be doing a lot more. And I stand by that, because they, you know, this is really rank, horrific, scandalous, disgusting behavior. I want to say something quickly also about, hold on, let me... So, Gonzalo Lira has died, and he died in a Ukrainian jail cell. And why? Because he criticized the US proxy war. I mean, this is really scandalous behavior, because the American embassy, remember, he's an American citizen. They did absolutely nothing, literally nothing, to help him. And he was in prison for months and couldn't even speak to his family. And he developed pneumonia and had other health problems. And, you know, he had pneumonia since mid-October, and they only admitted, the Ukrainian authorities only admitted that he had pneumonia in December. So they basically left this untreated for weeks, which is fatal. And it did prove to be fatal. And he just died at 55 years old. And, you know, I really don't know what to say. I mean, you see the disgusting behavior that the United States are pulling off in Gaza, and does this surprise anyone? No. It's still shocking, but it doesn't surprise any of us, you know. And he was a guest on this show, and you know, we didn't agree on everything, but he did tune in while he was in Ukraine, and at that point he had just been randomly kidnapped from his house. And you know, and then mocked and abused by Ukrainian authorities, and then they arrested and kidnapped him and threw him in jail. And you know, he's committed no crime. He's just someone who lived there and criticized the Zelensky regime and the proxy war. And we're told all the time that, oh, Ukraine is a democracy, like they should be given billions of dollars and weapons because they are upholding European values, whatever that even means. So ask yourself this: does a democracy throw a YouTuber into prison and then just neglect them until they literally die? What kind of behavior is that? You know, it reminded me slightly of the Palestinians who are thrown in prison and then neglected medically until they die. It's the same strategy. You know, the Ukrainians, they didn't just, you know, develop this or make this up on their own. The Israelis, and many Israelis are Ukrainian. They are the best at this. You know, there are tons. Khadr Adnan is one of them who died recently in prison. You know, they wait until they are literally about to drop dead, and then they finally move them to a medical unit when it's too late. Their cancer has gone untreated or whatever other issues they have, and then they die, right? They see them going on hunger strike, and they are happy to see them go on hunger strike because, you know, they are just basically, you know, going to wait until they are so bad that they die, like Bobby Sands. And, you know, no one says anything. No one calls that a human rights, an abuse of human rights, or puts sanctions on the Israelis or punishes them in any way. No, it's okay. You know, Israel is a democracy. Ukraine is a democracy. These are fascist, you know, authoritarian, evil regimes, without question. So I'm not surprised that they employ the same practices against anyone who stands up to them. again, Gonzalo Lira, a different context, a completely different context to the Palestinians, but the death is medical negligence, and this is the same death that a lot of Palestinian political prisoners are sentenced to by the Israeli authorities. And I couldn't help but draw the parallel when he is, when he died like this silently without anyone paying attention as the Gaza genocide is ongoing. Really disgusting. And at the same time, you have the British Prime Minister Rishi Sunak, who's given this standing ovation and the Hero of Ukraine award, which, correct me if I'm wrong, is the same thing they gave Stepan Bandera posthumously, who's literally a Nazi collaborator. Well, I guess it's fitting, right, for the British Prime Minister to be on the same list as a Nazi collaborator. There he is, Zelensky, the murderer. They're trash. These people are trash. They are absolute trash. Fascist trash. All of them. Nothing but corrupt, thieving, murdering fascists. That's all they are. Let me tell you quickly also about I want to talk about another journalist who was killed in Gaza. This is the son of Wa'el Dahdour. His name is Hamza, and he was killed already over a week ago. But it's just before yesterday that the Israelis have come out with more propaganda, about why they killed the journalist. And his father is the bureau chief, Al Jazeera bureau chief in Gaza, right? So that's his father. And you remember they already killed. So this is what al-Dahdour, they killed his other son, his daughter, his grandson, and his wife already 2 months ago. And this is after Blinken, told the Qatari government that they're not happy with the coverage that Al Jazeera is doing in Gaza, and they want them to tone it down. And of course, he is the chief correspondent and the bureau chief, Wa'el Dahdour. He's the face of the coverage. And so the Israelis then struck his family home. It's a targeted assassination and killed, as I said, members of his family, right? And now they've killed another of his sons. Here he is. That's Hamza. So he's also working as a journalist. And here's the last thing that he posted on his Instagram. Just more dead bodies, and then he was killed a few hours later in a drone strike, in an airstrike. And what's really disgusting about this is that the Israelis, they tried to say that he was in a car with a known terrorist, and then they changed the story and said, well, someone in the car was operating a drone, which made them look like a terrorist. Every journalist today has a drone. There's nothing wrong or suspicious about that. This guy, leave people the hell alone. What are you doing in Gaza? You go away. Also, the Israelis, they're full of it because they know exactly what a military drone looks like and what a civilian or journalist's drone looks like. They have completely different noise levels, weight, they move differently, different aerodynamics, different frequencies. This is a lie. You do not confuse these things. And then, you know, they then said, again, just 2 days ago, that they found his name, Hamza, the journalist, on a list of terrorists. And you're gonna laugh at this because of how, you know, just insane and cheap the propaganda is. Give me a second to pull up the list. The IDF posted this, right? The Israelis posted this on their official Twitter account. Here it is. Okay, so this is the list, and it's so horrendous. I mean, look at the quality of this thing. Okay, so they're saying they found this list in some random place in Gaza, and it happens to have you know, there it says al-Dahduh, right? And that this proves he's a terrorist. I mean, first of all, the quality is abysmal. Okay, they make it like pixelated on purpose, so it's difficult to read or it's off-putting, and you just take them at their word. And then on top of that, it's look at the top left corner at the header. It says Al-Quds Brigades, the northern region, in English. Since when do Hamas first of all publish or you know, list the names of their members and then leave it lying around and with something written in English so, you know, an international audience can understand it? If you really have to be a moron and naive as hell to buy this and believe this crap. You really have to be like, it's not just Israel insulting your intelligence, it's you insulting your own intelligence by believing this. This is so abysmal. It's the worst. I mean, really, it's like, it's almost as bad as the list in the hospital where they were just, you know, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday written in Arabic, and they said, look, it's a hostage nannying list. No. So this is what they publish, the Israelis, and they want you to believe this, you know, like, because they have a track record of telling the truth, you know, as always. Just so abysmal, so awful, so atrocious, and not to mention the fact that they literally murdered someone, and they do this on purpose because the guy is unrelenting. You know, I wouldn't be surprised if they would kill Wa'il, you know, God forbid, but I just mean that they do this to traumatize or like torture someone, you know, psychologically, because he now has lost, as I said, like a son, now another son, a daughter, wife, and grandson. So this is a way of punishing the chief, you know, the bureau chief in Gaza for the bad coverage in English. Remember, by the way, that a lot of the coverage Al Jazeera do in Arabic, which is Wa'il Dahduh's thing, is relatively the same in English. I'm only talking about Gaza. When it comes to Syria, it's a different story. But when it comes to Gaza, their coverage is very good, both in Arabic and English. And so, because, you know, this is making Israel look very bad, you know, in the Arab world, especially when Saudi Arabia and a lot of these other countries were just about to normalize ties with Israel, they can't afford this, you know. He's literally bad for business, literally. He's just doing his job. And so, you know, you can't blame him. The Israelis are to blame. They're the ones that are delegitimizing their own country, so to speak, their colony, and their own image more than anyone else. You can't blame anyone for delegitimizing Israel more than Israel. You know, no one is compelling them to go and murder 23,000 people and 130 UN workers and over 100 journalists and you know, including Hamza. They just want to do these things, but they want to also get away with it. And this is not the world that we live in. There are consequences for genocide. So again, this is abysmal propaganda, so cheap, so horribly done. I mean, really, it's not even, I was questioning whether I should even talk about this because of how horrible and just crap the whole thing is. But I wanted to at least tell you about what happened to Hamza. I know it's over a week old, but some of you may have not known. You know, there's never a bad or an improper or inappropriate time to talk about what's happening in Gaza, because it's 24/7. and the Israelis are failing really, really, badly to control the narrative. I don't understand how. Look, it's one thing for them to be exposed, but the propaganda they can control. They can control what they film, what they say, the stupid image that they publish. They can control that. And yet they still come out with the worst propaganda I've ever seen. It's like zero effort. I sometimes wonder if someone from Hamas is working in the propaganda unit and sabotaging everything they put out. Honestly, it's so funny to contemplate because it looks like it's done so badly on purpose to make Israel look like it's lying, because it is lying. We know that it is. Hamza is not a terrorist. Hamas do not write these names down. Again, we're not going to go down through all the details again, but it's funny to ponder whether there's someone in there sabotaging it. Anyway, I just wanted to update you on that. And here is the father after his son was killed. He just keeps going,
الارتجاجية حتى الآن حسب المصادر الطبية الفلسطينية إجمالي هذه الغارات التي شهدتها محافظة خان يونس أكثر من 71 شهيد على الأقل حتى الآن، وهناك عدد كبير من الجرحى، ويجري الحديث عن وجود شهداء في بعض الارتجاجية. حتى الآن حسب المصادر الطبية الفلسطينية إجمالي هذه الغارات التي شهدتها محافظة خان يونس أكثر من 71 شهيد على الأقل حتى الآن، وهناك عدد كبير من الجرحى، ويجري الحديث عن وجود شهداء في بعض الارتجاجية. حتى الآن حسب المصادر الطبية الفلسطينية إجمالي هذه الغارات التي شهدتها محافظة خان يونس أكثر من 71 شهيد.
He keeps going like it's nothing. He keeps going. Thank you again, all of you, for the kind. Thank you all of you for the kind donations and for the kind comments, and it's much appreciated. I see we've got also here. Give me a second to read this out for you. This is from Jackie. It says, "Thank you. Keep it up. Keep it up. Exposing Israel." And we also have Wild Rose who joined on Patreon. So I owe you guys a crab dance. Thank you very much, Wild Rose. Everybody, give Wild Rose a hand.
Clap for that, you stupid bastard.
Corn Pop was a bad dude, and he ran a bunch of bad boys.
Listen, fuckhead, you have fucking crossed the line, claiming I'm the enemy. You got that, you goddamn son of a bitch?
I don't give a fuck what you think, bitch.
Good morning. Sunday morning.
Cut that bitch off.
Thank you for Iron Dome.
Thank you. والله انتوا كلاب بصراحة يعني. ماشي نشتغل عادي.
We lied, we cheated, we stole.
China. And you ain't black.
There's always the macro.
And then there's the micro.
Do not come. Do not come.
I'm gonna come.
You talking to me?
Ladies and gentlemen,
I'll have 2 number 9s, a number 9 large.
we got him.
Because I have to do it myself. I know it's not.
I've fallen and I can't get up. Disgusting!
She was 12, I was 30, but anyway. We'll do it live! Fuck it! Do it live! I'll write it and we'll do it live!
Why you text Sender? Why? Oh, you're getting nervous, man. Calm down. It's okay. Okay.
Suck my dick and choke on it! I yield my time! Fuck you!
I love a good old we'll do it live from Bill Riley. That thing is really funny. Thank you very much for the comments. I see one here from Mary. It says if he doesn't, I think Mary's talking about Dahdur. She says if he doesn't keep exposing Israeli atrocities, his family has died for nothing. Bruno says, Allah bless that man. Love him for the sake of Allah. And we have another one here from Big Teal says, you cannot move a mountain. Yeah, I believe he's called, they nicknamed him the Mountain. Is as you as you correctly pointed out, you know, he's a rock. He's unshakable. AA07 says Nazi. Yeah, so Nazis still get targeted because of what happened in World War II. I can't believe it's for Zionists. Zionists are the real terrorists. They should be getting prosecuted. You know, the thing is that when it comes to the Israelis, they should. I mean, they more than deserve to be prosecuted without question. But the funny thing is, no one is vengeful. No one actually wants revenge. They just want to be left the fuck alone. You know, this is a very important point to understand. No one, you know, wants blood from the Israelis. They just want the Israelis to fucking leave them alone. Just leave Palestine and go away and leave people in peace. No one wants their money. No one wants reparations from them. They more than deserve it, without question, to ask for reparations. Don't get me wrong. I'm just saying what the bulk of public opinion is. They don't want anything except their land and to be left alone. That's it. This is really not asking much. I want to show you something here from that is related to this. Give me a second. I posted this earlier, so you guys maybe saw it, but I'll play it again nevertheless because it speaks to my point. So here, this is from so Nasrallah gave 2 speeches last week, one on the 4th and then again 2 days afterwards. So I think it's from the 6th or the 7th. And again, you could play this any time and it would be equally true. Listen to what he's saying. Look at what he's saying.
The number of military vehicles and the number of tanks that are being destroyed every day, the psychological situation. Yediot Ahronot said that one of the results of the Al-Aqsa flood battle is that 300,000 new people have sought therapy, have sought psychological therapy. So, you want to stay here? That's very difficult. Here, it's going to be very difficult for you. If you want to be secure, if you want to feel secured, you have an American passport, go back to the United States. You have a British passport, go back to the UK. Here, you don't have a future. And from the river to the sea, the land of Palestine is for the Palestinian people and for the Palestinian people only. The resilient Palestinian people, the Mujahideen.
That's it. Yep. Again, you know, a lot of Israelis have dual passports, and those who don't can get them. Remember when they assassinated the Mossad were doing an assassination in Dubai a few years ago, and they forged passports, and they also got passports by going to Germany and falsifying an application for citizenship based on victimhood of the Holocaust. So, you know, if you, for example, there are lots of Jews who fled Germany and Austria during World War II. They fled the Nazis and before World War II began, because Jews were being persecuted after the Nuremberg laws. And you can go, you know, if your family is one of these families, you can go to Germany today and you can ask for citizenship and you will get it. And I mean, this is just one avenue, right? And they, can you imagine, no consequences. So they like literally milking the Holocaust politically, and then even pretending to be Holocaust victims so they can get a passport to use for an assassination. No consequences whatsoever. My point is, though, that Israelis have many avenues open to them, given the fact that they are not from the Middle East. Many of them are Moroccan and Iraqi Jews, fine. But Israel itself was founded by European Jews, not Arab Jews. They're not Semites. and every successive Israeli government has been, mandated by Eastern European Jews. They can easily find a way to go back, just like they came to Palestine. 500,000 Israeli settlers have already left, indicating they have this possibility, and they just insist on coming to Palestine, living on someone else's land, killing someone for the land, creating a war that's 75 years long. Like Nasrallah said, if you want to be safe, then leave Palestine, because you will not be safe. It's not like because I want that, or he wants that, or anyone else wants that. This is just the reality. It's that when you invade someone's country, you colonize it, whether you're Israeli or you're British or you're French, there will be instability because people will fight back. They want national liberation, right? This is inevitable because you cannot maintain an occupation of this caliber, with this brutality, with this level of violence every day, and just have people acquiesce and make this normalized. There will always be resistance, and it's not because the people doing the occupation are Jewish. No one gives a fuck what religion Israelis are. They're just assholes. That's the only problem. They are assholes and thieves. No one cares what religion they are. Is Joe Biden a Jew? No, but he's a Zionist. Is he an asshole? Yes, because he's a Zionist. Very simple, man. You don't have to reach that far. Israelis are always trying to do this like Olympic level of reaching. Like until they twist themselves into a pretzel about it's always something about being Jewish. No one gives a fuck about your religion. Stop making it about your religion. You're just an asshole who's stealing land. Period. That's it. You're a thief. You're a fucking thief. And people don't like you because you're thieves. That's it. If there was a problem with if Arabs don't like Jews, why did you come and make a country in an Arab country? Why did you come to Palestine if it's unsafe for Jews? Obviously, there is no problem with Jews in Palestine. This is not Spain in the Reconquista. It's not Nazi fucking Germany. There's no problem. The Arabs have no problem with Jews. They have a problem with Zionists stealing their fucking land. And you know this, and you fucking know this. Muslims, Arabs, protected Jews from European persecution. That's why they came to fucking Palestine in the first place, before they stole it. And they did it in the Middle Ages, in 1492, during the Reconquista, when Spain did the Alhambra order, and the edict, and they expelled all the Jews out of southern Spain, Al-Andalus, where Jews were living among Arabs, and it was no problem. It was never a problem. And then the Muslims and the Arabs helped protect Jews from the anti-Semitism, from the Jew hatred of the Spanish. So multiple times in history, the Arabs and Muslims have protected Jews and harbored them, given them safe harbor and refuge from European persecution with no issue. And then the Israelis have the disgusting goal to act like Arabs have a problem with Jews. No, they fucking don't. They have a problem with Zionist thieves, period. Khalas. That's it. I'm done for today. Thank you all for tuning in. And please throw a couple of donations my way if you can, because, again, they demonetized the YouTube channel, so I can't ask you enough and thank you enough for your help. Armenia says, keep exposing these filthy Zionists, Richard. Here, I'll fist bump you back. Seriously, thank you all of you for your kind words. I appreciate it. And remember, please, to share the videos. Just Marco says, I yield my time. Fuck you. Exactly. That's my exit. All right. Thank you guys very much. Take care. Ma'asalame. Bye-bye. You cannot blame the Palestinians for, wanting to free their land. This is very basic, common principle of any human rights charter. It's in the United Nations Charter. It's in the Geneva Convention that if you are occupied, you can fight to liberate your country in any way you like. The UN General Assembly even underscored this and said this includes armed struggle. That means with weapons. No one wanted it to get to this situation. It's the Israelis who came and used weapons. When they did the Nakba in 1948, they wiped out entire villages. They wiped them out. This is very, very clear. This is ethnic cleansing, it's genocide. No one wanted it to get to this stage. It's the Israelis who've allowed it to get to this stage. There's nothing wrong with dismantling colonies. No one cries because the British Empire had to collapse.
We are imposing a complete siege on Gaza. There will be no electricity, no food, no water, no fuel. Everything will be closed. We are fighting against human animals and we are acting accordingly.
Human animals. I mean, if I had given you the exact quote that he just said of what he just said, you would think this is a Nazi talking about Jews in the Warsaw Ghetto. Human animals. That's what he called everybody in the Gaza Strip. What the Israelis have done before is that they calculated how much food people in Gaza need to eat to survive, right? Like what is the bare amount of calories? The Israelis did this for the purpose of looking at how much food they can give the Gazans, you know, as little as possible, just to make sure that they stay alive. And then they actually gave them less than that. And the only other example that I know of this in recent history is Nazi Germany. Okay, the food minister, the Nazi food minister, was called Backe. That's his name. He did something called the hunger plan. You can take a guess. You can guess already what it was. When they took all these Soviet prisoners of war, which they considered to be subhuman in Nazi Germany, Backe calculated how many calories they would need in order to starve the Soviet prisoners down to something ridiculous, like 50 or 60 calories a day. They gave the Soviets as little as possible, and guess what? A lot of them died because of hunger. Millions. And they gave the food to the Nazi soldiers, right? So this is a perfect analogy to what is happening in Gaza. So now, instead of giving them too little calories to survive, they're giving them no calories to survive, right? So it's gone from out of the frying pan into the fire. Hamas know that this is going to happen. There's always something that the Israelis do to crap on everybody. So when you are in a situation like this, you have nothing to lose. You literally have nothing to lose. So why not just go all out? Why not go all out? You know, again, the Israelis want you to think, oh, they're victims. Oh, Hamas are terrorists. No, man, you're starving 2 million people. You've surpassed terrorists. You become genocidal at this point. Let's call him General Genocide. Right? That's his rank. They need to plunder Niger. You got hundreds of trucks lining up at the border. They can't get in the country because of the situation that ECOWAS has created, and of course at the behest of France and the United States. These sanctions are biting hard and they're illegal. They have no moral or legal basis whatsoever. Niger is the poorest country on earth, and they bite it and smite it with these sanctions. How can you be so evil to do such a thing like that? People have had enough. When you have been subjugated and forced into poverty like this, you have no option but to give a middle finger and say goodbye, get out of my country, go now. I'm happy that I'm alive to see this. This is real decolonization. This is it. This is the real thing. The real thing. If it weren't real, they wouldn't be so upset in Paris. Now, would they? Would they? I rest my case. Let me just ask you something right now before I continue. And I want you to comment right now whether you're watching live or you're watching on replay. Especially Americans. Have you ever heard of Agadez or Airbase 201? Do you know what that is? Please tell me right now in the comments. Guess what? You should have heard of it. You should know it because you paid for it. This base cost over $100 million. It's one of those massive sinkholes that you have, in the Pentagon. Yeah, you guys know that the Pentagon have been audited, I think, twice, maybe 3 times. But the point here is that every single time that they've been audited, trillions of dollars are unaccounted for. The truth is that Airbase 201 in Niger is the largest American drone base, not in Niger, not in Africa, in the world. That's pretty unique. That sticks out, right? There's something special about this, especially when you paid for it. Hamas are doing exceptionally well, even though they have less resources, and they're constantly targeted, right? That is something which really shows you how sanctions have failed, how isolation has failed, how this strategy of trying to make sure that Gaza is besieged, Syria is besieged and isolated, sanctioned, cordoned off from the rest of the world. Iran is also sanctioned and isolated. Russia's isolated. It doesn't work. As a matter of fact, it's funny because they end up shooting themselves in the foot. They just shoot themselves in the foot. I take it the Israelis will insist on overstaying their non-existent welcome a tad bit more, but nevertheless, there is no question about it. What happened today makes the 2006 war with Lebanon, where Lebanon and specifically Hezbollah humiliated Israel, look like a joke. That's how bad today is, right? Like, that's how humiliating it is for Israel. The Canadian Parliament gave a standing ovation, literally a standing ovation for a Nazi. Not a neo-Nazi, no, a Ukrainian Nazi. He's like, oh, wait till they find out.
He's a Ukrainian hero, a Canadian hero, and we thank him for all his service. Thank you. No, the hell you don't. These are photos of him in World War II in the SS Galicia division. So this is the 14th division of the Waffen-SS. Here's Trudeau. Look at him try to wiggle his way out like some worm.
It's extremely upsetting that this happened. The speaker has acknowledged his mistake. It's going to be really important that all of us push back against Russian propaganda, Russian disinformation, and continue
Dude, what disinformation? Did you not applaud a Nazi? Are you not arming Nazis in Ukraine?